Starting cultivation in the world of Naruto. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76 Discovery. The first to discover the two people fighting were the crowd watching from the outside like Kashiwaho. One was the problem of distance, and the other was the problem of size. From the height of Madara and Hashirama, they were just a group of small ants and could not attract their attention at the first time. After all, they had to concentrate on dealing with a powerful enemy in front of them. Senju Tobirama and Uchiha Izuna both used long swords. The Uchiha clan actually took advantage of the fact that others did not dare to look at them, and using long swords to fight with people in close combat was a great advantage, so most of the Uchiha clan were good at using weapons such as long swords. As for Senju Tobirama, he relied on the chakra burst ability passed down from the ancestors of the Senju clan of the forest. This is an ability that relies on its own strong physical fitness and the use of chakra. Through precise control of chakra, chakra is concentrated on the whole body, so that the whole body is covered with chakra, and then a powerful force is burst out, and it can even easily smash the wall with bare hands. Relying on such power, it can be said to be invincible in close combat. As soon as the long swords in the hands of the two touched, Izuna felt a huge force coming from the opposite side. In just a moment, his palms were hurt and he almost knocked the long sword away. With just one sword, Tobirama pressed Izuna back a little, but Izuna had been in the battlefield for a long time, so he would not be defeated so easily. Feeling his weakness and strength, he immediately changed his strategy. Although Tobirama deliberately did not look into Izuna's eyes to avoid falling into Uchiha's illusion, Izuna had a way to force him to look. Since the two were fighting swords, they naturally had to look at each other's swords to confirm the path of the other party's sword. Izuna turned the long sword in his hand slightly, and through the reflection of the sword, the other party could see his eyes, and he immediately opened the main Gekio to pull the other party into the illusion. Because the long sword in Izuna's hand turned, his strength was weakened, and Tobirama naturally took advantage of the situation to press down, wanting to score a goal with one strike, but he did not expect to see the other party's eyes directly through the reflection of the sword. In just a moment, Tobirama felt it blood red in front of his eyes. Apart from his eyes, he could not see or feel anything. Izuna naturally took this opportunity to push away the long sword that was about to be pressed back on his body, and kicked Tobirama away with a kick, hitting a tree behind him. Facing the illusion of the Uchiha clan, the Senju clan had their own unique solution, that is, without their own temporary control, their previous continuous burst of chakra would be uncontrolled, thus destroying their bodies internally, thus stimulating them to wake up quickly. It was precisely because of this convenience that the Senju clan could fight back and forth with the Uchiha clan before, instead of a one-sided situation. Tobirama had already lifted the influence of the illusion when he was kicked away, but because of the chaotic chakra in his body, he had some difficulty in moving for a moment, so he did not dodge and use this kick to control the strength to let himself fly farther. If it were not for the tree behind him, he could fly another 1 or 2 meters, thus buying him more breathing time. Izuna felt that Tobirama's strength was too great, and that she could not gain much advantage in close combat, so she wanted to use ninjutsu remotely, and kicked Tobirama away to give herself time to seal. Fire style, Great Fireball Technique. Izuna used the Great Fireball Technique that she was most proficient in. The reason why she did not use other fire styles was to pursue speed, hoping to directly deal with the opponent before the opponent was out of the illusion. The Great Fireball Technique was undoubtedly the most convenient ninjutsu for the Uchiha clan. Unexpectedly, Tobirama woke up too quickly, so fast that it seemed that he was not under the illusion. To be honest, even the Senju clan, who were proficient in chakra bursts, should not have woken up so quickly. After all, the illusion that Izuna had used before was not simple. It was an advanced version of the illusion Sharingan, the illusion main Gekio. Logically speaking, even if Hashirama was hit by such an illusion at close range, he would have to last for a while, not to mention Tobirama, whose physique was much worse than his. Bai Sui's consciousness has been paying attention to the two battlefields, one large and one small, and immediately discovered the abnormality. At the moment when Tobirama was hit by the illusion, Bai Sui's consciousness felt a strange power, different from any known chakra. This power almost instantly expelled most of the illusions hit by Tobirama, which allowed Tobirama to solve the illusion of the Mangekyo in just a moment of days. Almost at the same time as feeling this power, Bai Sui's consciousness discovered the figure hiding underground, Black Zetsu. Obviously, this scene just now was done by Black Zetsu. What was the purpose? Combined with the plot on the previous life of Naruto, it is very likely that Tobirama killed Izuna, on the one hand, to give Madara the eternal Mangekyo, and on the other hand, to lay a hidden hand for Hashirama and Madara to turn against each other. Although the current ninja world has undergone a little insignificant change due to Bai Sui's intervention, causing Hashirama and Madara to oppose each other in advance because of their respective ideals, it is currently only because the goals of the two have conflicted, not really a breakdown in friendship, so it is definitely a good choice for Black Zetsu to take action at this time. And the time that Black Zetsu chose to attack was really good. If it weren't for Kashiwa's consciousness that had been watching the fight between the two, he would never have discovered the trick. Even Tobirama himself didn't notice the abnormality. After all, he had never been hit by the illusion of the Mangekyo before, and didn't know how much the Mangekyo added to the illusion. As for Izuna, if he was killed at this time, wouldn't no one know the abnormality? And Tobirama, who woke up in advance, used the water dragon bullet at the first time. The collision between the water dragon and the fireball produced a large amount of water vapor, which temporarily obscured the vision of both parties. Tobirama took advantage of Izuna's alert time to throw out his special Kyune, and was about to use the ninjutsu he invented, the Flying Thunder God technique, to defeat the enemy with one move. Kashiwa ran towards the position of the two people as soon as he found Black Zetsu. In order to increase the speed, Kashiwa did not choose to fly, but for the first time infused the true energy into his legs and then circulated it around his body. With a blessing of the true energy, Kashiwa quickly shortened the distance between the two sides. However, after all, Kashiwasu is not a true earth immortal, and cannot shrink the earth into an inch. He cannot arrive before Tobirama attacks Izuna, but this does not mean that he cannot do something. The distance between the two sides is less than 1 kilometer, and Kashiwasu's spiritual consciousness can already easily transmit information, so Kashiwasu did not hesitate to pass the information of opening Susanoo to Izuna. Since Kashiwasu had been to the Uchiha clan before, Izuna also knew Kashiwasu. After all, there was only one person who could be treated with such courtesy by his brother, so he did not hesitate to open Susanoo directly. After all, even if the information was false, he only wasted some pupil power when opening Susanoo, and there was no more damage. A book in the author group, Pi. Chapter 77 Captured Alive. When Senju Tobirama used the Flying Thunder God technique to teleport himself in front of Uchiha Izuna, he still kept swinging the longsword in his hand. After all, he wanted to kill Uchiha Izuna directly here. On the one hand, it could stimulate Uchiha Madara and provide some help to his brother, and on the other hand, it could prevent another Uchiha Madara from appearing. However, something he didn't expect happened. His longsword did not cut Uchiha Izuna's body, but cut on the ribs of Susanoo. At this point, Senju Tobirama took a step ahead of Shimura Danzo and completed the achievement of cutting Susanoo with a weapon in his hand. The sudden appearance of Tobirama really scared Izuna, who was completely unprepared, but when his sword cut Susanoo, he realized what happened. At this time, he was shocked and broke out in a cold sweat. He knew that he was careless. If someone hadn't reminded him before, he would have been killed by Senju Tobirama's sword. In fact, the reason why he didn't activate Susanoo immediately before was that he was afraid that it would distract his brother and make him think that something happened on his side, so that Hashirama Senju would find the opportunity to fight. Now he thinks that he is a little out of his mind. After all, as long as the two use ninjutsu, Madara and Hashirama will find it, so it is better to just use Susanoo and quickly deal with the opponent. Although Izuna only activated the initial stage of Susanoo, at such a close distance, it is still possible to catch Tobirama, who was shaken by the Susanoo, and his steps were a little unstable. The moment Tobirama was caught by the huge bone claw, he tried to get himself out of trouble by bursting chakra, but unfortunately he didn't do it. Then Izuna added an illusion, and then he grabbed Tobirama and turned to the direction he came from, looking at Kashiwasu, who was running towards him. Thank you for the reminder, otherwise I'm afraid I would have been ambushed by Tobirama just now. At this time, the water vapor around had dispersed, and Izuna saw Kashiwasu, who came. But Kashiwasu didn't talk to Izuna, but rushed straight to the place where Black Zetsu was hiding. On the way here, Bai Sui had been absorbing the key of heaven and earth through his spiritual consciousness, and mobilizing the natural ki in his body to match it. These ki that could be controlled at will by Bai Sui, under the control of his spiritual consciousness, gathered into a large number of fire dragon symbols, and released them all towards the opponent when they were still a certain distance away from Black Zetsu. These dragon symbols were extremely violent, and turned into flames the moment they appeared. The flames burst from a large number of dragon symbols, melted the ground in a very short time, and burned quickly underground. An extremely distorted scream came from the underground position, and then disappeared immediately. Uchiha Izuna, who was originally on guard because of Bai Sui's actions, was also stunned. He really didn't expect that someone was hiding underground where he and Senju Tobirama had just fought. The flames burst from a large number of dragon symbols were extremely hot, not only melting the ground, but also igniting Bai Sui's spiritual consciousness. Therefore, Bai Sui's spiritual consciousness was immediately withdrawn from Black Zetsu after the dragon symbols burst, so as not to cause unnecessary damage. Although the scream just now was indeed horrifying, Bai Sui was sure that Black Zetsu did not die, because when the flames gradually died out, Bai Sui's consciousness discovered that strange power again in the deeper underground. Although Bai Sui had never seen it formally, he suspected that this was most likely yin-yang escape. After all, in the plot of his previous life, Black Zetsu is the product of yin-yang escape, and it also had some magical properties. Knowing that Black Zetsu did not die, Bai Sui was not sorry. After all, the other party had lived for thousands of years, and was a conspirator who had mobilized Indra, Ashura and their reincarnations to fight many times, but was not discovered by Otsutsuki Hagoromo. This trip was unexpected, and being able to hurt Black Zetsu was already a good gain. After all, there was no case of Black Zetsu being injured in the plot of the previous life, and the yin-yang escape that created him had the characteristic of not being destroyed by chakra, so this time was actually more of an attempt. At least now it is certain that Kashiwasu has the ability to hurt the other party, which means that Kashiwasu can even wear the other party to death even if he grinds him, but the other party is likely to hide from Kashiwasu. Of course, the greater possibility is that Black Zetsu will disappear from the scene and want to use time to outlast those guys he hates, just like the past 1,000 years. But if Black Zetsu really intends to do so, Kashiwasu might wake up laughing in his sleep, although Kashiwasu is no longer sleeping. After all, judging from the current progress of his training, it is hard to say who will outlast whom if he really relies on time to outlast others. Even the reason why Kashiwasu still has to toss in the ninja world is actually because he is not sure whether he can achieve Earth immortality before the Otsutsuki clan appears. After all, only those who have truly achieved Earth immortality can be considered true immortals. At that time, even if the fight is a little bit worse and he can't beat others, Kashiwasu is fully capable of leaving the ninja world directly and going to practice elsewhere. Not only that, Bai Sui has always felt that this planet is not simple. After all, it was able to force Kaguya Otsutsuki to become pregnant through blessings and give birth to the two brothers Otsutsuki Hagoromo and Otsutsuki Hamura. In addition to the gods that have gradually revived in the past 1,000 years, Bai Sui knows that there must be some things he doesn't know yet, but he can't explore now. After all, he hasn't even found where those gods are. As for the so-called Shiki Fuijin, it seems that the Uzumaki clan doesn't have this ninjutsu now, although there is indeed a death mask in the hands of the second elder of the Uzumaki clan. It is said that this mask has a long history and was seized from a shrine destroyed by the ninja clan. But so far, no one has found anything from this mask. Bai Sui feels that it is very likely that the so-called death god has not awakened yet. After all, in his memory, Orochimaru cut open the belly of the death god, and no other souls floated out. If you don't consider the possibility that it has been digested or transferred by the death god, it means that it has not been used before Minato Namake's. But the problem is, since it is the ultimate secret technique of the Uzumaki clan, even if it is difficult and has great side effects, it should have been used many times over the years, and the souls in it must not be so few. It is very likely that when the Uzumaki clan was exterminated, this ninjutsu had just been developed, and due to the difficulty of learning and the side effects, it was shelved, which led to the lack of souls in the belly of the god of death. After all, Namake's Minato has been swallowed by the god of death for more than 10 years without any signs of being digested. It can't be a coincidence that all those before him have been digested and it just happened to be his turn. If that is the case, Namake's Minato should say thank you to Orochimaru. The new book of the author in the group is a comprehensive anime of Demon Slayer. Chapter 78, the situation of the ninja world. This verified one of his conjectures. Although it did not solve the hidden danger of Black Zetsu once and for all, it was a gain no matter how big or small. So Kashiwasu went to the main battlefield with Uchiha Izuna, taking the unconscious Senju Tobirama. The two stood 100 meters away from the two Gundams, waiting for the two men to express their opinions. Perhaps because he felt that his brother was just unconscious and not in danger of life, Hoshirama took the lead in releasing his wooden man technique, and a large amount of collapsed sawdust fell to the ground. Seeing Hoshirama's statement, Madara did not put on airs, and immediately released Susanoo. Kashiwasu's spiritual consciousness had not been retracted. He clearly felt that Madara was not in a good condition, and knew that it was time for someone to come forward to mediate. So Kashiwasu stepped forward and said, Madara, Hoshirama, we haven't gathered together to chat like this for a long time. I see that you are tired of fighting. Why don't you stop now and spar with each other when you have time in the future? Don't get really angry and hurt the harmony. In fact, Kashiwasu had discussed in the Uzumaki clan meeting before that you can't say that Hoshirama Senju is wrong, and of course you can't say that he is right. After all, there is no such clear black and white in this world. Don't look at Hoshirama Senju standing on the opposite side of most ninjas now. But he is not motivated by personal utilitarianism, but rather by public interest. He just wants to reduce casualties. Whether it is necessary or not, he doesn't want to see any casualties. The reason why Hoshirama Senju is standing on the side of those nobles now and is willing to help them suppress the ninjas is because he infers that this can reduce casualties and is a way to achieve the peace he wants to see with the least casualties. So, if one day, the ninjas are powerful and want to annex the entire ninja world, and can really build a unified and peaceful world, then Senju Hoshirama will definitely be the first to stand up and support it, because his position is not those nobles, but what he believes in peace. The reason why he is now in opposition to the ninjas is that the entire aristocratic group will never allow the ninjas to make the decision. They will definitely fight to the death, and the casualties will be great, which is not in line with his path to peace. However, if the ninjas no longer fight meaninglessly in the future, but accumulate their own strength, they can easily destroy the entire aristocratic system one day and kill accurately. Then the first one to attack the aristocratic system is Senju Hoshirama, because at that time, what blocked his path to peace was no longer the ninja group, but the aristocratic group he now supports. Therefore, Senju Hoshirama is not an enemy they must get rid of, but a powerful ally that can be won over, and the condition for winning over is that they must make themselves strong. Madara glanced at his younger brother Izuna, then at Senju Tobirama lying on the ground, with a barely perceptible arc on the corner of his mouth. Hoshirama, in today's battle, I admit that I am inferior to you, but I know that our current strength is not the end of our relationship. When our strength reaches a higher level, we will fight again. Also, after today, my Uchiha clan will establish a kingdom of our ninjas on this land. After all, the battles between ninjas are too boring for me. Izuna, let's go. Izuna heard Uchiha Madara's call, and ignored Senju Tobirama lying on the ground, and turned around and walked towards the location of the Uchiha clan members. Kashiwasu said to Hoshirama, you don't have to worry about Tobirama, he is just under an illusion, and he will wake up after the illusion is lifted, and I will go back to the whirlpool first. After that, he flew from the air to the location where everyone was watching the battle. When everyone learned that Madara and Hoshirama had fought to a draw, the Senju alliance, which was originally trying to maintain it, collapsed instantly. Except for those ninjas who were still standing around the Senju and were willing to follow them, the rest of the people looked at the head of the Hyuga family. After all, the situation on the scene was clear now. The Uchiha clan established their own country, the Uzumaki clan established a country with several other families, and the Senju clan and those ninjas who supported him surrendered to the daimyo. Now only these neutral families are left. And now these neutral families have expressed that they are willing to follow the arrangements of the Hyuga family in advance and retreat with the Hyuga family, so now the pressure is on the head of the Hyuga clan. To be honest, at this point in time, the decision he is about to make is likely to directly affect the future fate of the Hyuga clan. The pressure can be imagined. Now he would rather go to the battlefield to fight with Senju Hoshirama or Uchiha Madara than make this decision. After all, he is the one who died in the battle with those two. If this decision is wrong, it is very likely to lead to the destruction of the clan. But he also understood that in the current situation, he had to choose a side. If he wanted to remain neutral, The two sides would work together to get rid of them first, and then the two sides would decide the outcome on their own. After all, no one wanted to be stabbed in the back by these so-called neutral people when fighting with others. After thinking for a long time, the Hyuga clan leader finally made a decision: we will establish a country for ninjas. On that day, all the ninjas in the entire ninja world who were concerned about the battle between Madara and Hashirama expressed their opinions one after another in the following time, either choosing to establish a country or choosing to join the daimyo of their country. As for the ninja village, at present, only the Fire Country has established a ninja village, and this is because the daimyo had signed a relevance contract with Hashirama before. The daimyo was afraid that if he went back on his word, Hashirama would directly demolish his daimyo's mansion, so he funded him to build a village according to the content of the previous contract. As for the daimyo of other countries, they were not so kind. They directly incorporated the ninjas who defected to them into their own army and used them as a powerful fighting force. As for being dissatisfied with this? Sorry, those families who chose to join the daimyo were basically small and medium-sized ninjas, and they had no ability to make any waves in the hands of the daimyo. Anyone who dared to have any opinions could just die. After all, those nobles didn't like these ninjas in the first place. Otherwise, they thought that rejecting or directly slaughtering these small ninjas would only push them to the opposite side, and those daimyo wanted to take action directly. Because the ninja nation building jointly promoted by the entire ninja world this time directly put the original actions of the noble group against the ninja group on the table. Now they can no longer directly mobilize the internal fighting between ninjas through money, materials, beauties, reputation, etc. In addition, due to the establishment of each ninja nation, the noble groups that were originally connected were also divided and independent. Although their overall strength is still strong, they must face the surrounding ninja countries alone for a short period of time after being divided, and their original alliance was destroyed. Books by authors in the group, new authors, their achievements are much better than mine, recommended. Chapter 79, Founding of a Nation. A total of 12 ninja clans, including Uzumaki, Yamanaka, Nara, Akimichi, Inuzuka, Kurama, Gekko, Yuhi, Utane, Ibi, Yamashiro, and Tatake, gathered together for the last meeting before the founding of the country. The main theme of the meeting was simply a swearing-in ceremony. First, the dominant position of the Uzumaki clan was clarified at the meeting, and then it was confirmed that the Ino, Shika, and Jo clans would hold important positions in the country. After that, the remaining 8 ninja clans were assigned different positions and responsibilities according to their respective sizes and manpower. Finally, everyone swore together that they would obey the leadership of the Uzumaki clan and establish a new country governed by ninjas. Not only did they formulate some welfare and responsibilities for ninjas in the meeting, but they also issued a series of plans for civilians, striving to make ninjas and civilians live in peace in the new country, and everyone prosper and become strong together. The most important thing is to refer to the books that Bai Sui had taken out before, and establish a new civil service system that is in line with the generations. After that, if each family wants to obtain the basic powers and positions granted above, they must be promoted under this civil service system, which is also a measure to prevent these new nobles from being corrupted too early. Of course, since each ninja clan is essentially a small warlord, this new country is actually an official-based country with a civil service system and a military officer system running in parallel. The country's name is Kang, and peace and tranquility are called Ankang, and a strong body is called Kangte. Taking this Kang character only wishes that the people can live a rich life, be physically and mentally healthy, and stay away from war. As for the year name, it was not fixed, but it was agreed with Uchiha to establish the country on the same day, and jointly set this year as the first year of the new calendar to commemorate the ninja breaking through the blockade of the nobles and establishing their own country. After this incident, the original structure of the entire ninja world was disrupted again. Let's not talk about the distant ones, just take the Fire Country, which directly lost 1/3 of its original territory, and was occupied by the Kang country led by Uzumaki, the Dan country established by Uchiha, and the Wano country led by Hyuga. The location of Kang country is the original location of the Uzumaki clan. After all, they still have the sea salt business to do, but the area is larger than before, and the land and villages under their jurisdiction are also more. The location of Dan country is to establish a country at the place where the Uchiha clan's ancestral home is. In addition to the ninja clans and forces they have destroyed and annexed during this period, The territory is even larger than Kang country. It's just that because there are only ninjas from their Uchiha clan, it seems a little short of manpower. The location of Wano country is not far from Kang country and Dan country. After all, they are not stupid. They know that the fire country will definitely target them next. If they don't form a group with the other two countries, they will definitely be kicked out by the fire country first. How to say it? This cut the original tax revenue of the fire nation by nearly 1/5. And the key is to cut off the roads with several small countries around. If they want to attack those small countries first, it will be difficult for the fire nation to stop them. They can only use the means of Wei to save Zhao. However, if the other two countries cooperate, they will basically have no way to deal with them. After all, the fire nation has a large area, a good geographical location, and rich resources. The surrounding countries have been spying on him for a long time. If he dares to use all his troops to target the three countries, other countries will definitely not give up this good opportunity. Not only that, the three countries have cut off several trade routes originally used by the Fire Nation, which directly led to some of the materials of the Fire Nation being unable to be converted into money and could only be accumulated in his hands, which will lead to a little bit of national turmoil. Of course, there are many other changes in the Fire Nation, but some are due to distance reasons, and some are due to other reasons that have not erupted for the time being, but they will be revealed one day. Of course, it doesn't mean that those ninja clans can just establish a country whenever they want. If that were the case, the ninja world would not have been controlled by the nobles for thousands of years. In the Land of Fire, as long as they are afraid of Uchiha Madara's terrifying strength, other countries do not have this concern. Those small countries are fine. After all, their daimyo's military strength is not strong. It was originally relying on the deterrence of those big countries that prevented the ninja clan from replacing them. Now because of the chaos between countries, many small countries have been replaced by ninja clans, but the ninja clans in those big countries are having a hard time. Although the ninja clans in the big countries are powerful, it depends on who they are compared with. If they are compared with the 5 big countries, they are still not good enough. In the end, those ninja clans who were forced to establish their own countries had to unite and rely on the high mobility and concealment of ninjas to sneak around. This made those big countries a little tired of parrying and made them live in the cracks. Of course, it is not absolute. For example, in the territory of the Kingdom of Wind, due to environmental reasons, the large desert restricted the advance of the daimyo's soldiers. However, due to environmental reasons, the ninja clans could only rely on oases to establish a country, so the scale was not large. In short, due to various reasons, all countries could not really eliminate many ninja countries in a short period of time by themselves. And the longer it drags on, the more disadvantageous it is for the daimyo, because the destructive power of those ninjas is too terrible. A series of auxiliary ninjutsu such as transformation and illusion are not too obvious among ninjas, but when they really work on ordinary people, they are really terrible. Whether it is assassination, stealing intelligence, smuggling, burning important supplies, false military intelligence, inciting civil strife in the hinterland, etc., the various means used by ninjas are becoming more and more skilled, and it is becoming more and more difficult for the daimyo to resist, because their troops are gradually consumed in the process of going back and forth. In the end, the daimyo had to shrink their defenses and adopt a policy of clearing the countryside to prevent the ninjas from causing chaos. They were prepared to stabilize the country that was in chaos because of the ninjas, and then concentrate their forces to clean up the families one by one. The ninja clans were seizing the time to develop their power and strive to gain a foothold before the daimyo recovered. Of course, although the ninja clans in the 5 major countries are described so badly here, there is also an accident, that is, the water country. There is no way, the environment of the water country is too special. Except for a small piece of land in the center, the rest are small islands. If the daimyo's army wants to go to those small islands for redress, they must go by boat. But on the sea, the destructive power that those water-style ninjas can exert is really amazing. It only takes 100 ninjas to release water-style together, and the huge waves they create will directly bury tens of thousands of people in the sea. Chapter 80 Deterrence. Whenever a country is to be established, the establishment of the system must be carefully considered, the formulation of policies and laws must be carefully studied, the state affairs must be handled with caution, and the fundamental business of the country must be concentrated. If the system of the country is in line with the times, then the customs of the country can be changed. Seeing that many ninjas were in a mess because of various problems in the first founding of the country, Bai Sui also took out a book of Lord Shuang that had not been taken out before. In Bai Sui's previous life, the Book of Lord Shuang was basically listed as a banned book in history, because as Xiang Yang, who led the reform of the Qin state, his book contained a lot of principles for governing the country. If some ambitious and powerful people got this book, they would be able to start a vigorous rebellion from the people, making the country's ruling regime extremely passive. In his spare time, Bai Sui had read the Book of Lord Shuang several times, and every time he read it, he could find corresponding issues in various matters, and the combination of the two had new insights. However, when Bai Sui read it, he thought with the mindset of a modern person. He could not help but feel that many of the contents were extremely effective, but too inhumane, so he did not bring them out when he was in the Uzumaki clan. But now it seems that the position of Kangziguo is not much different from that of Qin. Back then, Xiang Yang went to Qin alone and implemented reforms in Qin. It took only more than 10 years to turn the backward borderland into a giant beast capable of sweeping across the 6 countries. Now, in Bai Sui's view, if we refer to the policies and ideas in Shang Junshu and other works, not to mention the long term, it is still possible to let Kangziguo gain a firm foothold in the ninja world and have the spare strength to expand around. After all, the premise of all this is to have enough strength to protect itself. As the saying goes, dignity is only on the edge of the sword, and truth is only within the range of the cannon. Although the ninja world does not have airplanes and cannons for the time being, the Jonin is actually equivalent to the sprinters of the ninja world, and Madara and Hashirama are equivalent to nuclear bombs. Now with Madara's deterrence, most people dare not directly attack the 3 countries. After all, Madara still has weaknesses with the country. If Madara is really turned into a lonely man, that is when he will be fully powerful. At that time, the daimyo will not dare to close his eyes when he sleeps at night. In fact, Kashiwasa had thought about letting Uzumaki Ashina organize people to raid several secret laboratories in the Land of Fire, get some related technologies in their hands, and then launch a new energy or technological revolution. However, seeing that the country was just established, there was a lot of work to be done, and it was not adapted to anywhere and lacked manpower everywhere, so he finally suppressed this idea and handed the matter over to the top leaders of the Uzumaki clan to listen, asking them to put this matter into the country's future strategic plan and deal with it when there was time and manpower. Time flies. In the blink of an eye, several years have passed. All countries have stabilized. During this period, some countries have collapsed, and some countries have risen. For a while, many heroes have emerged. It was very lively. However, because the previous management of the ninjas was more targeted at their own people, they did not have the experience and knowledge of large-scale management, so they kept making mistakes and accumulating experience. The original daimyo would naturally not leave them alone. Taking advantage of the transformation of the ninja clans, they specifically picked the weak points and made accurate adjustments. Now the number of countries established by the ninja clans has been reduced to less than half. But the remaining ones are the essence. They not only learned the preliminary governance of the country, but also raised their strength to a new level under Great Depression, and many strong people have emerged among them. Although they still seem to be incomparable with Hashirama and Madara, compared with a previous ninja world, this is already a great improvement, because those strong people are not the reincarnations of Indra and Ajura like Madara and Hashirama, but they are actually breaking through in accumulation, which is a manifestation of the overall rising strength of the ninja world. This is exactly what Bai Sui hopes to see. Although the speed is still a bit slow, if the arrival of the Otsutsuki is still the same as in the memory of the previous life, then the ninja world will have 4 or 5 generations to improve. After all, war is a catalyst for technological progress. In the past, the ninja world was consciously curbing the development of ninjas because of the intervention of the aristocratic group. However, even so, various ninjutsu and ninja tools came into being in the war. Now, the nobles who have been forced to stand in the open and confront the ninjas have no way to control the actions of the ninjas, and one of the 2 parties is determined to destroy the other party. This will inevitably prompt the 2 parties to gradually let go and develop in the direction of doing everything possible. Although this will inevitably lead to some bad consequences, don't forget that there is still a threat from the Otsutsuki clan. If a strong enough force cannot be selected from the ninja world in a short period of time, then everyone on the planet will die together. In fact, Bai Sui had considered speaking out about this directly, but the question was whether others believed Bai Sui. Even if they believed Bai Sui's words, in the eyes of those nobles, ninjas were originally tools for the Otsutsuki clan to occupy the ninja world. Although they didn't know why the Otsutsuki clan had internal strife in the ninja world, some of their ancestors who had personally witnessed the infinite moon reading and hung on the sacred tree to become white Zetsu could not deceive anyone. In their opinion, the occupation of the entire ninja world by ninjas and the destruction of the entire planet were actually no different. The result was the disappearance of these indigenous people. In this case, it would be better to die tragically and fight the ninjas to the death. Fortunately, the ninja world still has the two nuclear deterrents Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama. With their constraints, both sides dare not use some too inhumane means for the time being. It can be regarded as a healthy competition to a certain extent, but the price is a bit high. As the war between the two sides continued, the number of people who died directly or indirectly in the ninja world due to the war over the past few years has reached millions, not to mention the number of injured and disabled people, which is simply countless. It is also because of this huge number of casualties that Hashirama Senju wanted to stop the fight between the two sides more than once, but was stopped by Madara. It is not that Madara is now able to defeat Hashirama Senju, who has activated the Sage mode. All Madara has to do is to delay until the normal battle is over. After all, the current situation is there. If Hashirama really wants to resolve the battle, he must take action to destroy one of the forces. And this means that Hashirama will have to kill tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of people with his own hands. If he really can do this, he would not have the idea of surrendering to the daimyo and pursuing temporary peace. Chapter 81 Hongwangun. The entire ninja world was actually very chaotic during this period. This chaos was not only due to the war, but also because those countries that rose later always wanted to be different in order to show their difference from the old nobles. From the head of the country to the common people, every class and position has been thought of at least 10 titles. For example, the daimyo, the old national leader was called the daimyo, and the nobles called themselves very chaotic. Some continued to use the daimyo, some called the head of the name, some called the head of the country, some called the general, and some called the vassal or the king. Uzumaki Ashina thought about it, and after discussing with everyone in the clan, he decided to call himself the king, and the whole country directly applied the 3-province and 6-department system that Kashiwasu had brought out, and in order to show respect for Kashiwasu, he was named Taibeo. There was no way. After the system was brought out, it directly conquered all the people present. First, he maintained the status and power of the head of the country, and secondly, he gave other families the space to rise or even undermine the head of the country. The 3-province and 6-department system is mainly responsible for the formulation, review and implementation of central government orders and policies. It is not only applicable to the remote and sparsely populated Kang Kingdom. Even if Kang Kingdom takes over the entire ninja world one day in the future, this system can still work. It's just a matter of adding people and deputy positions. With this system, everyone found that there were too few people in the whole country who could really read and write, had good thinking logic, could understand and execute government orders. Because of the original monopoly of knowledge by the daimyo and other nobles, the lower class people had no possibility to study, so everyone could only open basic schools first, and then select people from them. Some of them were used to expand the scale of the school to teach more people to read, and the other part was used as the assistants of the existing ninjas to further learn and assist in handling some trivial matters. At this time, Kashiwasu could only be thankful that basically all the ninja clans had cultural education for their clansmen, otherwise the number of countries that could take root in the ninja world would be even smaller, because they would have no manpower to govern the country, and sooner or later they would be destroyed for various reasons. The current situation is that although the countries established by the ninja clans are relatively scarce in terms of manpower, their combat effectiveness is still there. They often use some violent means to maintain domestic stability, or rob some talents from outside, and then use various means to control them, which can be regarded as propping up the entire framework. When the 3 provinces and 6 ministries were implemented in Kang's-Higo, everyone actually had a great debate on the teaching content of the Hongwangun in the Ministry of Manxia. After all, the definition of Hongwangun is the location of the central official school, and its main responsibility is to teach ninja disciples and the children of officials above the 3rd rank who may appear in the capital in the future. The debate among the people is not about the selection of ninjutsu. After all, the real secrets of each family must be taught internally, and here they are more about laying the foundation, What everyone really argues about is whether to teach Chinese here and the classics that Kishiwase brought out. Although the Uzumaki clan has always kept it secret and did not want it to be known to outsiders, don't forget that it was because everyone's clan land was far away before, and if they really visited, they would not come to the living area. Now everyone lives in the same capital city, and they see each other every day. In addition, with the children chatting and playing with each other, everyone gradually knows about the treasures of the Uzumaki clan. There was no chance before. After all, if it was in the past, if you dared to spy, the two clans would definitely be in a situation of fighting to the death. Now it is different. Everyone is a whole. Taking this opportunity, other ninja clans spoke together and expressed their willingness to put some of their secret techniques in the Hongwen Pavilion so that everyone's children have the opportunity to learn. In the end, Uzumaki Ashina saw that it was really difficult to offend everyone, so after asking for benefits from other clans, he agreed, but made certain choices in the books. In addition to the necessary literacy, only some basic books were added. Other families did not push him too much on this matter. After all, everything is difficult at the beginning. As long as you get started, you can always find a way to squeeze out the rest bit by bit. And don't forget that there is still Bai Sui. Even if they can't get the complete book directly from Bai Sui, they can get a sentence or two when they chat and ask for advice. It's just that they didn't understand Chinese before, so even if Bai Sui said it, there were still many things they didn't understand. He didn't care about other families' actions to get knowledge from him. After all, the custom of being a teacher brought from his previous life was here, and it was his wish to spread Chinese more widely. In fact, Bai Sui didn't tell them, to destroy a country, you must first destroy their history; to destroy a group, you must first disintegrate their culture; to disintegrate their culture, first destroy the language it carries; to destroy this language, you must start with their school. After all, in Bai Sui's opinion, they don't need to know this, right? As a result, there are now two types of schools in the entire Kang Kingdom. One is for the people of the whole country, used for the most basic education, and the language taught is the native language of the ninja world. After all, this is enough. The other is the Hongwengun, which has only one for the time being, where Chinese is used as the first language and taught, and at the same time teaches the common language of the ninja world in order to communicate with the outside world. Later, those who learned Chinese raised their status in order to show their identity and called themselves the Chinese people. It was also because of the emergence of these Chinese people that the Chinese language was pushed to a new status. Later, when the entire ninja was liberated by the people, people began to force the popularization of Chinese in order to pursue equality. Of course, the above is already a later story. It is all about what happened after Kishiwase left the ninja world, and it is not something he can care about now, Lord Nara. This is the information that the subordinate has sorted out recently. Please take a look. Nara Shikamaru, who was the Minister of Personnel at the time, was listening to his subordinates making relevant reports. After discussions between Prince Uzumaki Ashina and many ministers, it was decided that the Minister of Personnel Nara Shikama would first draw up a list of officials, and then discuss it at the court meeting. Of course, the frequency of court meetings here is not high. A large court meeting is held every Monday, and all the important officials in the capital need to attend collectively. Then small court meetings can be held depending on the situation, and only the corresponding personnel need to attend. After all, for now, all officials are ninjas, and they still need to practice themselves, and they can't spend all their time on meetings. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82 Development. After a grand court meeting, the direction of development for the next period of time was formulated. Although after several years of hard work, there are no people in the country who are hungry, but this is not because every village or city can produce enough food for their own lives, but because of the central control of the ninjas. Yes, in the current Kangxi Kingdom, large-scale transportation actually relies on ninjas. It is not that ninjas are rich enough to deliver goods, but if civilians are used for transportation, because of the road and the foot distance, half of the food they transport back and forth will be used as food by civilians on the road, which is too much. And now Kangxi Kingdom is not only the villages and lands attached to the Uzumaki clan in the past, but also many newly reclaimed wastelands. The initial yield is not high, and it will take a period of maintenance to increase the fertility of the land, etc., before the yield can finally increase. Now it still relies more on the output of the original land of the Uzumaki clan to make up for the deficit. Of course, this situation will not last too long. After the unremitting efforts of the people over the years, the holes that need to be filled by high-yield areas are getting smaller and smaller. Therefore, this time, the Grand Court meeting held a heated discussion on the transportation problem. First, the Ministry of Industry reported the latest research progress of the chakra car. At present, the Ministry of Industry has successfully developed a dual-purpose vehicle for chakra and firepower, and has produced 2 types of vehicles for transporting people and goods. Because the ninja world has artifacts such as the sealing scroll, it does not need a large cargo box. Often, a village's annual grain can be loaded in just a few cubic meters, so the delivery vehicle does not need to be too large. The main consideration is to save chakra so that the transport personnel can be transported for a longer distance. The requirements for the vehicle for transporting people are higher. First of all, the speed of the vehicle cannot be too slow, otherwise the ninjas might as well run by themselves. The other is that it must be able to carry enough people at one time. Now both vehicles have been successfully developed, but in actual experiments, it was found that throughout the country, except for populated areas, there are mostly forests and rivers. The car will basically be blocked after a short time of driving, which is not as convenient as when the ninja is alone. The final decision of the ministers in the court was to make road construction a top priority. Most of the next batch of newly trained ninjas would be sent to the Ministry of Works. Not only that, the graduating ninjas would receive special training. An official from the Ministry of Works would teach them some earth escape techniques so that they could save some trouble when they took up their posts in the future. This move was the first in the country of Kang to conduct targeted ninja training. After that, the 24 departments under the 6 ministries would arrange officials to go to Hungwengan for special training and selection in advance as needed. The outstanding personnel needed would often graduate early because of this. Later, this behavior was called recommendation. Although the specially trained ninjas were not comprehensive enough and were easily targeted by the enemy. Kang's research in that direction also enabled Kang to train a lot of special jonins in a short period of time. In other words, in a certain aspect, they had reached the level of jonin, but if evaluated from multiple angles, they could not reach the strength of a normal jonin and were easily targeted. Although such a special jonin is not as good as a jonin, it is much stronger than a normal chunin, and it can pose a sufficient threat to a jonin, and even kill a jonin directly if the timing is right. For example, a special jonin who has been repairing roads since graduation is very familiar with earth escape. After all, he only eats and drinks every day to repair roads, such as softening gravel and hardening soil, turning the original muddy pond into a hard and resilient stone road. When fighting with someone, he habitually took action. He softened the land in front of him from the surface to the depths, and then hardened it in a very short time, trying to imprison the opponent in place. Unexpectedly, the enemy's specialty is also earth escape. At the beginning, he wanted to use earth escape to hide himself underground. As a result, the ground was hardened by this special jonin. Although he did not petrify the enemy and the ground at once, he also imprisoned the opponent 10 meters underground, and finally suffocated the opponent to death below. Not only that, but there was also the driver of the chakra car, who was so good at using fire escape or lightning escape that he was really good at it. After all, in order to ensure the service life and speed of the chakra car, they had to control not only the explosive power of fire escape but also the temperature of fire escape to prevent the engine from burning out. The most exaggerated one among them could release 3 fireballs within 1 second. Although each fireball was much smaller than the normal size, only the size of a fist, the appearance of these 3 fireballs in such a short time was simply a sure kill for ninjas of the same level. The same was true for the lightning escape ninjas. The masters of those people were able to tame the violent lightning escape into a stable current, keeping the speed of the motor in a relatively stable range. This directly gave them a control over the lightning escape ninjutsu they released that was beyond the imagination of others. What kind of lightning ball could turn, what kind of lightning escape that would not shock the range of companions, etc. In short, the characteristic of lightning escape that people used to know about was easy to spread seemed to be non-existent in their hands. Of course, there are still a minority of people like this, and such policies have only been implemented in the past few years. However, everyone is very optimistic about this, and feels that if they continue to develop, they will definitely be able to point out more skills in each specialty. You know, in the past, although ninjas basically used ninjutsu every day, except for those who were still learning as children, they basically had to go to the battlefield. They always pursued killing people with the least chakra and completing their goals with the least force. They used as little ninjutsu as possible and retained chakra as much as possible. With the current situation, you don't have to fight, you can release chakra at will. There are always people around you to help you protect your safety. And there is a 99% probability that you will not encounter danger in the environment you are in. It is simply incomparable. In addition, in the past, basically what you can learn in the family is the inherited ninjutsu of your own family, but everyone's chakra attributes are different, and the focus is naturally different. In the current Hongbunken, all the ninjutsu are contributed by the 12 families. Although some advanced ninjutsu are not yet available, the basic ninjutsu has been fully equipped. People have more choices, their talents can be displayed earlier, and everyone's strengths can be better brought into play. Chapter 83 Trade. In terms of the current geographical environment of Kangshiguro, there are two ways to develop externally, one is by land and the other is by water. If the water route is considered, the closest to Kangshiguro is an island. The island originally belonged to the water country, but after the water country was divided by those ninjas, the island was temporarily in an ownerless state. Because there is no fresh water on this island, it used to be a garrison and training ground for the daimyo of the water country. All kinds of materials here rely on the daimyo to transport them here every month. However, after those emerging countries blocked the sea, this island directly became a cage. The people in it persisted for 3 months and still did not wait for any information, and none of the ships sent out returned, and the people on the island finally went crazy. These tens of thousands of soldiers fought frantically for the exhausted food and fresh water on the island. When the emerging country of Homium, which was closest to the island, learned that there was a daimyo's garrison here, they also wanted to come here to pick up people and expand the population in their own country. But even the ninjas who had been through many battles changed color when they saw the appearance of the island. Some young people even vomited on their clothes and did not dare to get off the boat. There was no way. It was not only a visual impact, but also a destruction of the taste. Tens of thousands of people died directly on the island. Even if some were eaten or thrown into the sea, the remaining ones were still rotting collectively on the island. That scene and smell became the nightmare of all those who landed on the island. As for whether there were any living people on the island in the end, it was not important. The ninjas who came here unanimously felt that in such an environment, even if there were still survivors, they were no longer human, but demons living in hell. After that, this matter spread like wildfire, not only in the country of, but also in the surrounding countries. Through merchants and other calibers, they gradually learned about it. So now everyone knows that there is a demon island here, and they can choose to occupy it if they want, but they need to clean up the entire island and prepare relevant resources by themselves. The most important thing is to ensure the smooth flow of shipping to avoid such problems from happening again. The location of this island is very important to Kangshiguro. If it can be occupied, it will take less than 2 days to reach the Kingdom of Holmium in the east and the Kingdom of Claw in the south, greatly shortening the sailing time and distance at sea. It is an extremely important transit station. Even if it is not for expansion, but for trade, building this place into a maritime trade hub as a link between many islands and the mainland in the east, just to provide convenience for ships and collect taxes, the benefits it can bring to Kangshiguro are countless. Because the Kingdom of Tuan, the Kingdom of Yi, and the Kingdom of Kang chose to establish countries and adjacent places in order to form a group, it happened to occupy all the coastal areas on the east side of the Kingdom of Fire, resulting in a large amount of materials that were originally intended to be sold to the eastern islands. If you start from the southern waters, not only will you have to pass through the waters of 6 countries along the way, but you will also extend the voyage by dozens of times, which will directly increase the risk to the highest level and reduce the benefits to the lowest level. Although the current Kang Kingdom is not rich enough to export food, some merchants and small nobles in the Fire Kingdom have it. These merchants and small nobles saw the fruits and vegetables in their hands rotting day by day, and even the food was accumulating day by day. Their daily food and clothing expenses did not decrease, and their family assets were getting thinner day by day. They were worried about it. As for selling it directly to the Fire Kingdom, because of merchants and small nobles like them, the food in the entire Fire Kingdom basically could not be sold at a high price. Even many noble lords did not let their farmers farm, but instead asked them to grow some cash crops such as medicinal herbs and cotton. Although the prices of these crops were also falling rapidly due to the increasing number of crops on the market, there was still some profit. Among those merchants and small nobles, there were always some brave ones, or those who were blinded by greed, ready to risk their lives. In the Tuan Kingdom, because of the arrogant character of Uchiha, although they did not kill them, they looked down on such guys who betrayed their masters for glory and directly drove them out. After leaving Tuan's Higuo, those people followed the stream and went downstream. They were discovered by Kang's Higuo ninjas standing guard on the watchtower from a distance. They were first captured as spies. After a simple search and interrogation, the matter was brought to the case of Chiu Daoding, the assistant minister of the Ministry of War. Later, at the small court meeting, it was proposed by Uzumaki Shangshin, the assistant minister of the Ministry of Revenue, and finally approved by Uzumaki Ashina, the king of Kang, who agreed to let Kang's Higuo purchase grain from them in his personal name. A large amount of grain was purchased from them at a price 30% lower than the international grain price, and what was paid was not direct silver or gold, but Kang's Higuo's specialty, refined salt. There was no way. After turning against the old aristocratic forces, Kang's Higuo's refined salt sales were not high, because the lower class people could not afford refined salt, let alone vinegar and salt, and the only ones who could really consume refined salt were the nobles. It was only because of the confrontation between the two countries that these refined salts could not be sold in the Fire Country. In fact, the nobles who were used to using refined salt were also very uncomfortable, but they had no choice. They wanted to use it but had no place to buy it. Now, Kang's salt has a place to sell, and the grain of the Fire Country nobles also has a place to sell. Everyone is happy and making a lot of money. Who is really at a disadvantage? Perhaps only the daimyo of the Fire Country and the lowest civilians. With the grain of the Fire Country, Kang can do too many things. First of all, it is to store part of it as war materials, and the rest will be used to exchange materials or ninjutsu with the islands in the east. There is no way. Although the ninjas of the Water Country have blocked all the passages to the outside of the Water Country, the ninjas of the Water Country, which are completely huddled on the main island and the two outer islands, have no way. The real grain-producing area of the Water Country is the main island in the center. Although it is not impossible to grow crops on other islands, there is too little land available, which is not enough for them to use. In the past, they relied on the reserves of the Water Country on various islands to fill the gaps, and the population shrinkage caused by the losses in the war allowed most people to not starve. Now that they have these foods, Uzumaki Ashina and his men have the capital to control these people who may be allies. The reason why they are called allies is entirely because of their unreliability and greed. Chapter 84 Dream. Not only the Eastern Islands, but even Wano Country sent a letter to negotiate, expressing its desire to purchase a batch of grain from Kang Country. This is obviously the other party giving them face, otherwise, they are close to the Fire Country, and they can even take the initiative to find merchants in the Fire Country to buy. Kang Country naturally responded with goodwill and sold about 10,000 tons of grain to Wano Country at cost price. Wano Country did not use gold and silver to settle all the payments, but used ninjutsu and other secret techniques to offset part of the money, which was considered a courtesy. Of course, Wano Country is not just here to build relationships. After passing through its hands, this batch of grain can also be sold to countries further south. After all, in the entire ninja world, in this reform, except for countries such as the Iron Country and the Demon Country where non-ninja forces gathered, all other countries have been more or less damaged. When the daimyo and the ninja country fight, as long as the result is not one-sided, both sides will naturally want to destroy each other's food and grass. After all, the food and grass must be prepared before the troops move. Even if there is no such saying in the ninja world, as long as it is a normal person who eats normally, they understand this truth. Once a tug of war is formed, the two sides will further upgrade from destroying food supplies to destroying fertile fields, and the destructive power of ninjas is simply terrible. Only one Jonin is needed to destroy the fields of several villages at one time, directly killing the crops in the fields and leaving no harvest next year. At this time, because of the confrontation between Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama, the relatively stable Fire Country is the largest grain-producing area in the entire ninja world. However, as mentioned before, because of this ninja world change, all the power territories have been redivided, resulting in the limited amount of food that the Fire Country can sell to the outside world. The daimyo of the Fire Country is indeed a man of character, preferring to let the food rot in the warehouse rather than sell it to the ninja country. However, this approach has damaged the interests of a large number of merchants and nobles, and this is why Kangzigo and others took advantage of it. Time passed quickly, and the ninja world came to the 10th year of the new calendar in such a dispute. Bai Sui also washed away the leaden luster of his golden elixir in his Niwen palace through water grinding. Today, he specifically told the housekeeper in the Taibao mansion that he would practice in the study room, and no one was allowed to disturb him. No matter who the other person was, he would not see him today. The area of this Taibao mansion was not large. It was built when Bai Sui was appointed as the Taibao. At Bai Sui's request, it was not built into a mansion with several gardens. It was just a simple house with more rooms, one for each person in the mansion and some extra. However, it was indeed much smaller than other mansions. And the study room was the focus of Bai Sui's care. He only asked someone to build the room, and all the decorations and layout inside were completed by Bai Sui himself. The whole study room was about 40 square meters. When you opened the door, you could see a wooden hollow screen. Behind the screen was an immortal table. In the afternoon, the sunlight here was very comfortable, and Bai Sui often sat here to read. To the left of the immortal's table is Bai Sui's desk, where he often writes and paints, or copies some books. Behind it is a large bookshelf, on which are neatly stacked books from his previous life that Bai Sui copied, as well as some scrolls collected from the ninja world. The things on this bookshelf have been coveted by the top leaders of the entire Kangxi kingdom for a long time. They don't ask to move it directly, but just want to come to the study to see it when they come to greet Bai Sui. Just seeing these things here, they feel it is a great honor. At the other end of the room, there is a bed, separated from the whole room by a screen. Sometimes Bai Sui will rest overnight in the study. Bai Sui also arranged a secret room in this study. The secret room is very old-fashioned and is located under the bed. After all, if someone really enters the study to search for the secret room, it doesn't matter where it is. Lifting the bedboard, a bright hole was revealed. The bottom was decorated very brightly by Bai Sui. After all, this was a secret room he would use, not for hiding things. Why did he make it so dim, as if there were some evil ghosts and zombies inside? Bai Sui came to the futon in the secret room and sat down. He slipped on his boots and crossed his legs. He immediately looked inside his Niwen palace, watching the golden elixir inside spinning around. In a moment of silence, not knowing whether it was just now or now, Bai Sui's golden elixir was mixed and perfect, and his own soul took the initiative to rise from the danshin and headed towards the Niwen palace. The danshin is the residence of the soul, and the Niwen is the portal of the soul. According to common sense, if the soul has any action to take next, it should be done in the danshin. After all, that is the residence. But now everything is not actively controlled by Bai Sui, or it is not controlled by Bai Sui's body, but Bai Sui's soul is moving, operating in the most favorable way for him. With the arrival of the Yuanshan, wisps of light rose from the entire Niwen. Yes, it was light, but these lights were like flowing water, like clouds and mist. These lights permeated around Bai Sui's golden elixir. If a top physicist saw Bai Sui's golden elixir at this time, he would definitely be crazy about it. Because what was in front of him was a perfect sphere. No matter how he measured or verified it, what was in front of him was a perfect sphere. Of course, the measurement error of the tool was not counted. At this moment, Bai Sui found that he could not sense the 10-meter area outside his body, and even gradually could not sense his own body. All he could see and hear was this narrow Niwen palace. The Niwen palace was narrow, but also very vast. In the human body, it was only the size of a finger, but in the Niwen, it was the same size as the heaven and earth. The Niwen was hidden in the human body was hidden in the heaven and earth, and the heaven and earth were hidden in the Niwen. Although Bai Sui could not see his body or the world, at this moment, he heard the rhythm and the singing of all things in this Niwen palace. Whether it is high mountains and flowing water, whether it is insects, scales, hair, feathers, and insects, what Bai Sui heard in his heart at this moment is that everything that should exist is all there is, and there is nothing in the first place. And there is nothing. All things that are created are like dreams, illusions, bubbles, and shadows, like dew and lightning, and should be viewed in this way. In the past, Zhuangzhou dreamed of being a butterfly that fluttered, and he felt that he was content. He did not know that he was Zhou. The breath of life and the shape of things are all illusions. The beginning of creation, the change of yin and yang, is called life, and it is called death. The exhaustion of numbers and the change of shapes are called transformation, and it is called illusion. The creator is ingenious and his work is profound, so it is difficult to exhaust and end. The shape is ingenious and his work is shallow, so it disappears as it arises. Knowing that illusion is no different from life and death, you can start to learn illusion. You and I are also illusions. Why should we learn? At this moment, all the classics that fit the current state in my mind emerged one by one. However, what I said is all wrong, and I am not able to speak. Chapter 85 Earthly Immortal. At this time, in Bai Sui's eyes, no. In his ears, yes, no. It should be in his heart. Yes, it was in Bai Sui's heart that those rhythms emerged, and through these rhythms, the outline of things was constructed. As more rhythms were received, the construction of a thing became more perfect and more real. It was just because the rhythms received were extremely complicated that Bai Sui had to consciously select which rhythm belonged to whom. And because of the characteristics of each thing itself, the strength of the rhythm it emitted was different, and the distance of transmission was also different. As more and more things were gradually constructed in Bai Sui's heart, the brilliance emitted by the Yuanshan became more and more. And these brilliances were not only rotating around the golden elixir, but also penetrating inward, and the golden elixir also actively catered to release ki outward. So the Yuanshan and the golden elixir had some kind of inexplicable interaction through the golden elixir and ki. Although it seems that the Yuanshan is still the Yuanshan and the golden elixir is still the golden elixir, if you feel it with your senses, you will find that the Yuanshan is becoming more and more real and the golden elixir is becoming more and more illusory. In the outside world that Bai Sui could not see, the entire Taibao mansion was emitting a faint light. Although the light was weak and ordinary people could not see it at all, those ninjas were not vegetarians. They had heard that Bai Sui was practicing in seclusion, and the house had been glowing for 3 days. Then King Kang Uzumaki Ashina ordered everyone to evacuate Taibao mansion and sent more people to guard the periphery to prevent anyone from breaking in and disturbing Bai Sui. This move was both good and bad for Bai Sui. First of all, after Bai Sui completely virtualized the entire golden elixir and completely integrated it into his soul, Bai Sui constructed more things in his mind and the scope was larger. Although he lost an opportunity to directly analyze the rhythm of living people, because there were no people moving around, Bai Sui constructed the entire Taibao mansion in his mind, which was an area of more than 10,000 square meters. However, for the time being, there was only the Taibao mansion floor, and it did not include the underground and the sky. By the way, it's not that the rhythm of a living person has not been analyzed, but the rhythm of Bai Sui himself has been analyzed. In Bai Sui's heart, he has become one with the entire Taibao mansion. As the already illusory golden elixir was completely absorbed into the soul, Bai Sui also broke away from that magical state and once again viewed the world through his own body. With just a move of faith, Bai Sui appeared at the gate of Taibao mansion. The vigilant ninjas around didn't see the situation clearly. Bai Sui disappeared again and appeared at the back door of Taibao mansion. After that, the whole person shuttled back and forth throughout the entire Taibao mansion. When Bai Sui appeared at the gate of the mansion, the ninjas had already discovered it, but they didn't see it clearly at the time, but their vigilance was still very strong. They sent a signal at the first time and sent a team to investigate, and the others watched and guarded for him. After that, the team found countless Bai Sui, appearing in every corner of Taibao mansion. Of course, there are various clone techniques in the ninja world, which did not surprise everyone. They just suspected that Bai Sui had said that he would practice in seclusion during this period, and these super clone techniques should be the result. After confirming that it was Bai Sui himself, all the teams retreated after saluting and went to find King Kang Uzumaki Ashina to report. After Bai Sui's own exploration, it has been confirmed that the world constructed in his inner scene is this Taibao mansion, and because of the rhythm, the two are actually the same thing, the same space. Remember what was said before, the Niwan is hidden in the human body, the human body is hidden in the heaven and earth, and the heaven and earth are hidden in the Niwan. Now what Bai Sui has to do is to continue to analyze the rhythm of various things and reproduce them in his inner scene. And for everything constructed in his inner scene, Bai Sui can do all kinds of incredible actions in it. For example, the teleportation in the previous experiment cannot even be called teleportation, because Bai Sui himself did not move, he just thought so in the inner scene, and he was there. And as long as Bai Sui is willing, he can change the outside world by changing the things in the inner scene. For example, there is a persimmon tree in his courtyard. Bai Sui tried to change its rhythm artificially in the inner scene, and finally turned it into a black date tree. Although this process is extremely slow and even difficult, it is only because Bai Sui is not familiar with this rhythm now, and he does not know enough rhythms. He has not summarized a set of corresponding rules, and can only operate with his own thoughts and feelings. Bai Sui has completely stepped into the realm of Earth Immortals this time. In fact, he has not gained too many abilities, that is, he can only discover and try to influence the rhythm. Everything else, such as shrinking the Earth into an inch, is just finding the rhythm of space and walking on this rhythm. Everything else is also the application of this rhythm. Now what makes Bai Sui most proud is this Taibao mansion in his inner scene. Bai Sui found that as long as the distance is not too far, currently within 100 kilometers, he can teleport directly to the Taibao mansion, which is equivalent to having an additional return to the city skill. Moreover, Bai Sui also found that perhaps it was because when he recorded the Taibao mansion in the inner scene, he activated their own rhythm, causing the key in it to be very active. If the same person tried to perceive the key in the Taibao mansion, it would be more than twice as easy as in the outside world. Bai Sui felt that if he operated here for a long time, he might be able to develop it into a blessed land, and this might be one of the reasons why this realm was named Earth Immortal. Because the rhythm of the entire Taibao mansion had been recorded by Bai Sui in the inner scene, even if it was damaged, it could be restored in a moment, and because it was completely controlled by Bai Sui, it would be much easier for Bai Sui to try to disturb various rhythms here, because the entire Taibao mansion itself would shield or amplify some messy rhythms, making it easier for Bai Sui to find the rhythm he wanted. For example, if you want to shrink the Earth into an inch, it would be at least twice as easy to perceive the rhythm of space in the Taibao mansion than in the outside world. Moreover, the rhythm that Bai Sui changed in Taibao mansion can last much longer than the outside world. Therefore, the entire Taibao mansion is Bai Sui's personal territory in the true sense. It is not only in terms of the legal theory at the national level, but also at the level of this world. This Taibao mansion has been marked with Bai Sui's personal rhythm, which is Bai Sui's own existence. If others want to occupy it, the first thing to do is to expel Bai Sui's rhythm. If you can't do this, then this place is not yours. Even if you have lived here, you will be gradually rejected by the surrounding environment. In the end, you will either be unable to bear to leave or integrate into it and never leave. Thank you for your support for this book. To be honest, I wrote a messy book in the front. Because of work, I haven't typed by myself for almost a year, so I'm really not used to it. Everyone can tolerate it all the way to here. I really appreciate your support. Whether you continue to subscribe to the following chapters or not, I want to say thank you to all readers who have read this book first, because if it weren't for your follow-up reading, this book would not have been recommended for 3 rounds when it was signed for 100,000. This book will be available at 12 o'clock noon on April 10, 2023. There will be 10,000 words updated on that day. I hope everyone can support the author by subscribing. Thank you. If the subscription can reach 1,000, I promise to subscribe 10,000 a day for 7 days. If the average subscription can reach 1,000 or more, I will continue to subscribe 10,000 a day. If the average subscription exceeds 1,000 a day, I will subscribe 10,000 a day. If it exceeds 1,000 a day, I will subscribe 10,000 a day until the end. Actually, it is just put aside, because the number of readers of this book has not reached 1,000, but salted fish must have dreams. If there is none of these, I will subscribe 4K every day. Finally, thank you all for your support. Thank you. Chapter 86 Interior. Now, Bai Sui looks at other people and things from a completely new perspective, that is, rhythm. Of course, all living things are more complex than dead things of the same level, so it is increasingly difficult for Bai Sui to explore their rhythm. For example, in Bai Sui's Taibao mansion, in addition to bricks, tiles and soil, Bai Sui also recorded plants such as grass and trees. For the time being, even insects such as ants have not been completely recorded. Of course, insects such as ants are relatively simple. According to Bai Sui's estimation, it will take only a month or so to successfully record them. And because insects such as ants have similar structures and relatively simple thoughts, as long as Bai Sui records the first ant, the speed of recording other ants in the same nest will be significantly accelerated, and it will be faster and faster. Just like when Bai Sui was recording grass, it took 1 hour to record the first grass, 10 minutes to record the second grass, and then after the number increased, It was almost 1 second to record a square. Because Bai Sui has basically figured out the rhythm of this grass, he can tell the subtle differences in the rhythm of each grass at a glance. Bai Sui believes that as long as he records enough content in his inner vision, sooner or later he will be able to include a planet in his mind with just one thought, but he doesn't know how far in the future this is. Without thinking that far ahead, Bai Sui's latest goal is to first include the entire capital of Kangxiaguo in his inner vision, and then gradually radiate to the whole country, and then further annex the entire ninja world. After the entire surface of the planet is recorded in Bai Sui's inner vision, the next step is to go straight inward to the core of the earth and outward to space. When the entire planet is included in Bai Sui's inner vision, he will be the only god of this planet, the master who can create the world with a thought, and even directly put this planet into his inner vision and take it away. As Bai Sui's inner vision gradually grows, the people of Kangxiaguo have also discovered the benefits of it. Don't forget that everything included in the inner vision will change according to Bai Sui's wishes. That is to say, as long as Bai Sui is willing, he can make the crops in the field mature overnight, and the price is the energy he pays when controlling the rhythm. Yes, Bai Sui only needs to pay the energy when controlling the rhythm, just like the energy consumed by your fingers when vibrating the strings. The vibration of the strings and the propagation of the sound do not actually require you to do it. The heaven and earth are operating naturally, and you just provide an introduction. Of course, since you only fluctuated once, there is only one sound. If you really want to play a complete song, you have to fluctuate or press the strings continuously. Moreover, the rhythm between heaven and earth is not as easy to fluctuate as a string. If you want to compare the two, the fluctuating rhythm is like asking a normal-sized person to play a steel column that is 10 meters thick and 100 meters long as a string. The difficulty can be imagined. So if Bai Sui really wants to make the crops in the field mature overnight by controlling the rhythm, although it is not impossible, the consumption is really not small. Even the consumption of 1 acre of field may be more than the energy consumed by Senju Hoshirama using the wooden shield tree world. After Bai Sui's exploration of the rhythm of the human body, he found that this was because everyone's rhythm had a certain bias. The chakra attribute of the ninja is a manifestation of this bias. A ninja born with fire attribute chakra, the rhythm he exudes, is biased towards fire. That is why he uses fire escape ninjutsu more powerfully and consumes less energy than those who are not born with fire attribute chakra. Of course, because the rhythm emitted by the human body is too complicated and even changes every moment, Bai Sui has never studied it clearly. By then, Bai Sui discovered a way to use the rhythm in this process, that is, to change himself into other things by changing his own rhythm. Because Bai Sui does not have many things recorded in his inner view now, he can change into relatively few things, and most of them are things that cannot move. Although there are relatively few types at present and the consumption is relatively large, this kind of change is not just a change in appearance, but a real change into the other person. For example, Bai Sui once tried to turn himself into rockery. He was a rockery. Because he was made of stone, he could not move, but he would not die. Even if the rockery was broken into many pieces, the stone was still a stone, and Bai Sui did not die because of it. It was just that when he changed back in the inner scene, it would consume more energy than a complete rockery. In Bai Sui's view, this was the 72 transformations, and there was no need to practice it specifically. It was a natural ability after becoming a terrestrial immortal, but the types of transformation needed to be manually added. At this moment, Bai Sui truly felt the benefit of coming to the ninja world, that is, he was the only terrestrial immortal on the entire planet, and no one would compete with him for territory. If this was not in the ninja world, but a world of immortal cultivation, Bai Sui suspected that when he cultivated to the realm of terrestrial immortals, he would find that the whole world had been divided up by his predecessors, and there was no place for latecomers to settle down. Of course, this is just Bai Sui's own ridicule. After all, he has never been there, so who knows what it is like? After all, in his previous life, the world of immortal cultivation in novels and animations was a group of gangsters in his eyes. They were just talking about Taoism and robbing houses. Maybe those people don't need to accommodate the world in their inner scene, but just need the spiritual energy in the world. Maybe they can coexist peacefully. And as Bai Sui gradually spread his inner scene, he found that it was not only the rhythm of people that was more complicated, but the more energy and information contained, the more complicated it was. For example, a scroll with a seal is more complicated than a blank scroll, An lit oil lamp is more complicated than an unlit oil lamp, and so on and so forth. What made Bai Sui happy was that he finally discovered the special features of the death mask. I remember saying before that there was such a death mask in the collection of the Uzumaki clan, but it had never been studied out before. Now Bai Sui found that the rhythm of this mask was extremely complex, even more complex than that of a human. Although it didn't allow Bai Sui to discover the secret directly, it at least gave Bai Sui a direction to start. After all, no matter how complicated the melody is, as long as it can be observed and recorded, sooner or later Bai Sui will be able to record it in his inner vision. What's more, if Bai Sui just wants to find out some of the functions or usage methods of this mask, he doesn't necessarily have to record it in its entirety. Just like the rhythm of the entire space, Bai Sui doesn't need to record it completely, but as long as he finds the rules through his own observation, he can use its power to shrink the earth into an inch. Thank you all for your support for this book. To be honest, the front of this book is quite messy. Because of work reasons, I haven't typed by myself for almost a year, so I'm really not used to it. I really appreciate your support for being tolerant all the way to here. Regardless of whether you continue to subscribe to the following chapters, I would like to say thank you to all readers who have read this book first, because if it weren't for your follow-up reading, this book would not have been recommended for 3 rounds with a contract of 100,000. This book will be available at 12 o'clock noon on April 10, 2023. There will be 10,000 words updated on that day. I hope everyone can support the author by subscribing. Thank you. If the subscription can reach 1,000, I promise to subscribe 10,000 a day for 7 days. If the average subscription can reach 1,000 or more, I will continue to subscribe 10,000 a day. If the average subscription exceeds 1,000 a day, I will subscribe 10,000 a day. If it exceeds 1,000 a day, I will subscribe 10,000 a day until the end. Actually, it is just put aside, because the number of readers of this book has not reached 1,000, but salted fish must have dreams. If there is none of these, I will subscribe 4K every day. Finally, thank you all for your support. Thank you. Chapter 87 Death. Since he could feel the rhythm, Bai Sui is now like a child with a toy. No matter what he sees, he wants to observe the rhythm of the other party, or explore the operating principle behind it. For example, by observing the rhythm of the dragon symbol condensed by Bai Sui himself, Bai Sui learned the principle of its operation, which is to produce rhythm through the special flow and explosion of ki, thereby stimulating the corresponding effect. The reason why the true ki in Bai Sui's body cannot be used directly according to the method of using ninjutsu is also because of the rhythm. The rhythm of the true ki itself is not on the same frequency band as chakra, which makes it impossible to apply it. As for the others, it remains to be further observed by Bai Sui. One day, Bai Sui was expanding his inner scene as usual, and suddenly he felt a unique rhythm in his inner scene. Bai Sui immediately moved himself there and found that it was the death mask that had been placed on his bookshelf, which was emitting a new rhythm at this time. This kind of rhythm, from small to large, from nothing to something, gave Bai Sui the feeling that it was like throwing a small stone into a dry well, and now what he heard was the sound of the stone falling to the ground and reflected by the dry well. Then, Bai Sui felt a wave of mental fluctuations coming from inside. Out of caution, Bai Sui did not detect it immediately, but waited for the mental power to work on its own, wanting to see what the other party was going to do. Bai Sui was not disappointed. The mental power kept surging and gradually accumulated into a human figure, but the outline looked like a person, and there were no specific facial features. It seems that this is the legendary god of death, but it looks a bit miserable. This state looks worse than the soul that just died. I don't know how long it has been tortured here to turn a deified god into this. Yes, when Bai Sui saw the other party for the first time, he felt that the other party was a god. This was not expressed through any clothing or pomp, but an essential difference. Perhaps the other party's rhythm carries such information, or it may be other reasons. But what Bai Sui can be sure of is that the other party is indeed a righteous god, but it is really too miserable. Not to mention Bai Sui, even a random ninjutsu with mental attack can directly destroy it. Although the other party is miserable, after all, the status is there. Bai Sui also politely asked you if he needed help. After all, those who can become righteous gods, even if they are not senior practitioners, are good people who have accumulated good deeds in their lifetime. If he can help, Bai Sui doesn't mind. Although this god of death has no facial features, he can still speak, But this language is obviously not commonly used in the current ninja world. Bai Sui can't understand it at all. Fortunately, both parties are not ordinary people. It doesn't matter if they don't speak the same language. They can communicate directly with their spirits. And this god of death is really not an evil god. He didn't say that he wanted to eat human souls. He said that he had been sealed in a mask for 1,000 years. Now it is because the seal has declined with the passage of time that he can see the light of day again. Now he just hopes that Bai Sui can help him build a statue and find some people to worship him. If he can hold a temple fair for him, he will be very grateful. Bai Sui did not agree blindly. After all, although the other party was a righteous god, it was better to be cautious about rashly increasing the people's faith. So he asked about the other party's duties and abilities, and then asked him to cultivate in this mask first, and asked him about the situation. The reason why Bai Sui did not guarantee it was because he found that the god of death was actually quite useless, or he was too useless now. What he could do was actually to harvest the souls of the dead and judge the souls. It's just that the souls of the dead will not fly to him on their own initiative, but will break to fly to the underworld. But the god of death said that the underworld was snatched away from him by others, and now he can't contact the underworld, or the underworld has blacklisted him and excluded him. So he is now a lonely man, not to mention that he has no souls under his command, and he has to harvest souls by himself if he wants them. In addition to his ability to harvest souls, he can also nourish the souls of his subordinates to prevent them from being wiped out by the power of heaven and earth, so that they can survive for a long time, but the number is limited. There are only 10 places at present, and he can't afford to support more than this. Although the number will gradually increase with his strength, this ability is useless, because the souls he protects are actually in a dormant state and have no independent consciousness. Of course, as a true god, he naturally has more than just these two abilities, but the problem is that he is too disabled now. He has been trapped here for more than 1,000 years and is so weak that even a gust of wind can blow him away. Therefore, he can only use these two abilities for the time being, and forget about the others in the short term. Moreover, according to this god of death, although he was sealed in a mask before, there were still people who offered sacrifices to him. Although the amount he could really get through the seal was very small, it was still a little bit. However, those sacrifices stopped hundreds of years ago, and there was no offering at all in the days that followed, which led to the current situation. Bai Sui nodded secretly, thinking that it was right. When he asked the elders of the Uzumaki clan before, they said that this was a trophy after a shrine was destroyed by a ninja clan. Isn't this right? And others don't know. How can Bai Sui not know? The one who robbed him of the underworld was Otsutsuki Haguramo, also known as the Six Paths Sage. Although it is not known whether it was Otsutsuki Kaguya who sealed him, it is not likely to be much different. This is really the case. The Otsutsuki family has done so many bad things. The predecessors sealed and stole his family, and the descendants made him extinct. This is to send him off with a one-stop service. However, those are not what Kashiwasa can handle now. The most urgent task is to throw this matter to Uzumaki Yuta and his ministers for discussion. Yes, Uzumaki Yuta is now the new King Kang. The old King Kang, Uzumaki Ashina, is already in his 60s and 70s. Although his body is still very strong, his energy is not as good as before, so he simply let his son take charge of things, and he lives a retirement life of enjoying his grandchildren every day. Of course, what he has now are no longer grandchildren but great-grandchildren. After all, his grandchildren are more than 20 years old. After getting the relevant information from Bai Sui, after a morning of consideration, they finally decided to build a shrine for the god of death and assign a special shrine maiden to worship him. As for the temple fair, they should forget it. After all, such a weak god, if they are publicized now, they will laugh at them if they are seen by outsiders. After all, there are already many people in Kang's-Higuro who secretly worship the statue of Bai Sui. After all, he is older than the old King Kang, and now he still looks like he is in his teens and just turned 20. In fact, the current King Kang Uzumaki Yuta or the entire court now really wants to establish Bai Sui as an immortal, which can not only appease the people in the country, but also deter the surrounding countries. After all, the deterrent power of a living immortal cannot be underestimated. In addition, Bai Sui has not been without action over the years, and the surrounding countries still know Bai Sui as a #1 figure. Even if they don't believe in Bai Sui's immortality, knowing that there is such a master who can live 100 years is somewhat stressful. After all, Who knows if there will be a second one after the first one? If the shelf life of the strong men in Kangxi country is so long, they can be worn out by time alone. After all, the average life expectancy of the entire ninja world is less than 30. How long do you think those strong men can live? You know, even Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama, they are both over 30 and have begun to go downhill. Although the Uzumaki clan is known for longevity, everyone can see the old age of the other party. Yes, it is old age, because there is a yin seal in the Uzumaki clan that can delay aging. Uzumaki Mito, who has learned this technique, looks like he is in his 20s and his 30s because of this technique. The person who taught Uzumaki Mito was the fifth elder of the Uzumaki clan, Uzumaki Chiwa, who is already in his 60s. He still looks 30 years old, but it is only his appearance. From his various manners and temperament, he can feel the aura of old age that does not match his appearance. Moreover, everyone also discovered that the appearance of this elder Chiwa has changed very quickly in recent years. You know, she has maintained the appearance of a 20s for more than 30 years. Now such aging actually means that she is about to lose her yin seal. Of course, it is not to say that she will die soon, but because of her age, her control has declined a little. She can still live for another 10 years, and even if she grits her teeth and holds on for 20 years, it is not unheard of in the history of Uzumaki. But this kind of change will eventually arouse the emotions of people who are familiar with her, so someone still helps her find the corresponding child so that she can take over the inheritance in her hands. Although the clan has records and backups for each secret technique, there is a huge difference between someone teaching and exploring by yourself. In fact, a few years ago, someone had asked Bai Sui in a vague way, but Bai Sui declined. After all, he can still live for at least another history of the ninja world, and when he sees the disciple he likes, he will take action. After Bai Sui refused, no one said anything more. After all, saying such words is like hoping that the other party will die soon. So naturally no one will bother to say such words. Another reason is that Bai Sui's appearance is so good. Not only has it not been unable to maintain and started to age, but since Bai Sui became a terrestrial immortal, the whole person looks more energetic. Under the sunshine, the whole person looks like a small porcelain figure. So referring to the relevant information of the yin seal, no one would think that Bai Sui would not be able to hold on for long. Instead, they began to take the lead in boasting about Bai Sui's immortality, such as his immortal appearance, immortality, and a genius who has not appeared for thousands of years, etc. Anyway, Bai Sui himself couldn't listen to it, but others listened with relish. After that, everything was peaceful. Many countries were actually waiting to see who would fail first between Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama. Over the years, both of them showed signs of aging on their faces. After all, it is a high-risk profession like ninja, and these two people have been squeezing their own chakra to the limit since childhood. They think that although they are still so strong now, in at most 20 years, even if they don't die of old age, their strength will be greatly reduced. At that time, everyone may be able to kill them with manpower. Especially those daimyos of the old forces, they have actually held back some big moves in their hands over the years, and they all want to wait until the two die. After all, they are not sure whether their big moves can really deal with these two people. If they don't work, they will anger the other party. They don't know whether the entire old daimyos are finished, but the daimyos who attack the two must have finished their families. Now the balance of the entire ninja world is very delicate. In fact, the overall strength of those ninja countries is completely defeated compared to the original daimyos. Of course, this is without counting Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara. In order to seek survival, those ninja countries naturally tried every possible way, so they set their sights on the tailed beasts. These tailed beasts, which are said to have infinite chakra, have indeed caused great damage to both sides. However, the current ninja countries have no way to accurately control the tailed beasts. They have always used them as disposable tools, letting them to the battlefields or borders of both sides, and then relying on the mobility of the ninjas to quickly leave, leaving the trouble to the daimyo forces. The first to use the tailed beasts was the country of compassion that split from the country of lightning. After that, other ninja countries in the ninja world began to follow suit, which forced out the long guns and short cannons that the daimyo had been hiding. Although Kashiwasa had seen guns appear in the plot of Naruto in his previous life, that was more than 50 years after Naruto, and it was still far from now. Who knows how far the current top technology has developed? Even when seeing these guns and cannons, Kashiwasa suspected that these were not the things that the daimyo had kept in their bottom boxes. After all, in Kashiwasa's memory, there was still a country of the sky, and that technology was quite advanced. There was even some chakra armor later. Who knows if it has been developed into prototype now? The current period of time is the time for each country to develop. Everyone knows that as long as Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha do not die at the same time, the balance will always shift to one side. At that time, the death of any one of them will be the fuse that completely triggers the war in the ninja world. For a while, the entire ninja world was frighteningly calm, and the calmness made those who knew the inside story feel uneasy, fearing that the entire ninja world would suddenly fight one day. No matter how repressive the outside world is, the territory of Kangxi is full of vitality, and Bai Sui also made new discoveries when expanding the interior. There is a ranch near the clan land of the Nara clan, which is full of deer domesticated by the Nara clan. In the farmhouse of this ranch, there is a statue. This statue is a deer, a male deer. At first glance, you will be attracted by the slightly exaggerated antlers on the deer's head. It was from this statue that Bai Sui discovered the abnormality, which exuded a rhythm similar to that of the god of death, although it was extremely weak. Bai Sui did not act rashly, but went to the Nara clan to find out the situation. Firstly, the statue was an heirloom of the Nara clan, and if he took it without permission, he would be no different from a thief. Secondly, the rhythm of the statue was too weak, and Bai Sui was afraid that he would accidentally destroy the rhythm of the other party. So it was better to find the Nara clan first to understand it clearly. Anyway, the two sides lived not far from each other and had a good relationship. In addition, although the statue looked old, it did not seem to be taken seriously, so it would not be difficult. Sure enough, after the Nara clan learned about Bai Sui's intention, they told him very happily. After all, it was not a secret. It turned out that this matter involved about 700 or 800 years ago, when the Nara clan was weakened by the war and a large number of ninjas in the clan were injured. In their experiments, they found that deer antlers were a good medicine for restoring chakra. So their clan began to hunt deer on a large scale. The effect was very good at the beginning. Because there were many deer, the Nara clan also prospered. But later, because of their large-scale hunting, the number of deer they could find became fewer and fewer, forcing them to constantly migrate to find the location of the deer. Later, a clan leader decided to try to raise deer artificially, and this was unanimously agreed by the clan members, but for some reason, the deer they raised always died for various reasons. If all the ninjas were used to regulate the deer through chakra, although the deer's survival could be guaranteed, the cost was too high, far exceeding the cost of migrating to find the deer. Later, I don't know which deer-raising tribe member, because of boredom or something, carved a statue of a deer in the ranch with wood. Of course, it was not the current statue. Since there was this deer statue in the ranch, the state of the raised deer has gradually been able to survive and reproduce. Although I don't know why, everyone has begun to follow suit. So from then on, the Nara family began to really raise deer, and the antlers and velvet antlers produced were of better quality than those of the deer raised by others. In order to commemorate the deer that made the Nara family prosperous, all the Nara clan leaders have a deer character in their names since then. The statue that Kashiwasa saw now was brought here when the family moved here because of the founding of the country. This statue is not the oldest one, but it has a history of more than 100 years, so it was moved here at that time. After listening to the story of the Nara family, Kashiwasa also told the other party about his discovery. Of course, he did not tell the other party about the rhythm, but said that he found some similarities between the statue and the mask of the god of death, so he came to ask the Nara family about the situation. You must know that the Nara family is an important official in the court of Kings Higo, and more than one person has sat in a high position. Naturally, they know about the god of death that Kashiwasa mentioned in the court before. Now it is said that the god of death shrine has established a stable channel of contact with the god of death through sacrifice, and has developed a super forbidden technique called Shiki Fujin. Chapter 88 Creating God. Once the Shiki Fujin technique is performed, it is a powerful forbidden technique that can force a one-to-one exchange with the opponent. To be honest, this technique is very cost-effective in the eyes of the Uzumaki clan. You should know that the elders of the Uzumaki clan are basically masters of sealing techniques. Although learning this technique is a bit difficult, it is completely feasible. Using your own body that is over 100 years old to exchange for a master in the prime of life is simply a good deal. Moreover, Since the god of death is supported by their country of Kang, they can even communicate with the souls devoured by the god of death through means such as sacrifices if necessary. It can even be said that with the existence of this god of death, each family is no longer afraid of the situation of inheritance being cut off in the future, because if it really doesn't work, they can pull out one of their own predecessors from the god of death for on-site teaching. The only thing to worry about is that their own secret techniques may be stolen in this way. In fact, this effect is completely beyond the expectations of the ministers in the court. At that time, everyone decided to give a sacrificial position to this god of death who sounded like he was only half a breath away for the sake of Bai Sui. Now that they have such a harvest, it is completely beyond the expectations of the ministers. It can only be said that the lower the expectations, the more sudden happiness comes. Some ministers even propose to increase the sacrificial standards for the god of death, and strive to help the other party recover as soon as possible, so that they can also get more benefits from it. Naturally, there are ministers who oppose it, thinking that the god of death is now begging them to perform sacrifices. What if the other party no longer cares about them after recovery? The main thing is to deduct the other party's sacrifices and prolong the other party's recovery time. In short, no matter what the claim is, the cause of the dispute is that everyone discovered the power of the god of death. Now there is a high possibility that there will be another god in their own dear statue. Although it sounds like Kashiwasui is weaker than the god of death, the meaning is different. After politely sending Kashiwasui away, the Nara family held a family meeting overnight to discuss the matter. As for how they finally decided, it was none of Kashiwasui's business. He knew what he wanted to know, and then went to the death shrine to chat with the god of death. As soon as the matter of the statue was explained, the god of death immediately understood what was going on. This was because the Nara family's long-term worship had caused a spirit to appear in the statue. It was just a spirit, not a god. Although this spirit would have some magical powers, it was still a long way from becoming a real god. According to the god of death, due to a catastrophe that he was unwilling to talk about, most of the gods in the world fell, and the rest were either sealed or enslaved, so there were actually many empty positions. If this dear spirit had good luck, it might really have a chance to become a true god, although it was extremely difficult and the time span required was also very long. The next day, Nara Shikishin came to visit, not as a person, nor as the head of the Nara family, but as a minister of the court. It turned out that after the Nara family discussed it, they decided to report the matter to the court, hoping to gather the power of the country to worship the statue. If there was really a god in it, then their Nara family would still be indispensable. After all, the shrine maidens and priests in the death god shrine are from the Uzumaki clan, and the death god mask belongs to the Uzumaki clan. The Nara clan has a very good plan. If they really rely on their own sacrifices, it is unknown how long it will take. You must know that this is not the oldest statue in their clan. They have never offered any gods before. It may take hundreds of years for them to do it alone. Now that it is handed over to the state to operate, not only can they save their family from worrying and working hard, but they can also take the biggest benefit from it. Why not do such a business? Bai Sui followed Nara Luzhang to their family's ranch, ready to take on this job. Because Bai Sui had never seen the birth of a spirit, he was also very curious. If he could create a life from nothing under his hands, it would naturally be a very glorious thing. Although the current deer spirit is not from nothing, the meaning is still the same. It is still very fulfilling to accomplish such a thing. Through the information obtained from the previous communication with the god of death, Bai Sui began to use his spiritual sense to try to communicate with a spirit hidden in the statue. Unfortunately, there was no feedback at all. This was the first situation that the god of death mentioned. The spirit had just been born and did not even have its own consciousness. Although it would spontaneously spread its abilities to the outside world, so that more people would believe in it and worship it, it was not actually born at this time. At this time, the spirit was the best time for the gods to take action. They could directly brand the other party with their own mark before the spirit was born. After that, no matter what kind of spirit the other party was originally, it would move closer to the branded god. For example, if the god of death branded his mark in the spirit of this statue, the spirit would move closer to the god of death. When it completely gave birth to its own consciousness, it was very likely that it would be a spirit that specialized in harvesting dear souls, and this was the authority of the gods. The god of death even took the initiative to say that as long as he was allowed to brand it, the birth of the spirit could be accelerated, but was rejected by Bai Sui. After all, it was useless to have a spirit that could only harvest dear souls. After all, there were no powerful deer-like spiritual beasts in Kangxi country. It would be a waste if it was branded. In Bai Sui's opinion, based on the characteristics of this spirit now, it is a positive game-type spirit, even if it can only work on deer. After all, products such as deer antlers and velvet can also bring benefits to Kangxi. Bai Sui explored the statue inside and out and confirmed that this was the birth of a spirit, and it was a newborn spirit that had not yet given birth to self-awareness. So Bai Sui followed the method he had learned from the god of death before and began to have people capture deer, expand the artificial breeding area of deer, and have people worship in front of this statue, offer tributes when nothing is wrong, burn more incense, and pray more. Things after that can only be left to time. After all, what they can do is to directly brand it. This is the top configuration. Although he learned about the blood sacrifice ritual from the god of death, which can not only enhance the power and ability of the spirit, but also greatly shorten the time of birth, but this is obviously a crooked way. Bai Sui not only directly refused, but also asked the god of death not to spread this method to the outside world. The combined efforts of the whole country have had unexpectedly good results. Not only has the Nara family's Sika deer breeding base expanded 3 times, the number has increased from more than 1,100 to more than 7,000, and the number is still gradually increasing. However, according to the Nara family's estimate, there are only 8,000 deer in the wild in this area. I don't know if it's the effect of this statue, but these deer sent for breeding are all living well. Under the care of the Nara family, they are all starting to gain weight. Within 3 months, Bai Sui sensed the movement in the statue. The original rhythm suddenly increased and became more complicated. Bai Sui moved to the statue as soon as possible. Yes, during this period of time, Bai Sui did not stop. His inner vision had adjusted the direction to cover the entire breeding base, just to be able to observe the movement here in the first place. Seeing the sudden appearance of Bai Sui, the Nara family ninjas waiting at this breeding base were not surprised, because they were used to it. During these 3 months, Bai Sui would come to see the statue from time to time to see if there was anything wrong with it. The ninja thought that Bai Sui was just coming to take a look and leave as usual, so he didn't pay much attention to it. However, Bai Sui took the initiative to wave at him and signaled him to go to find his clan leader Nara Shikasho. After receiving the news from his family members, he knew that Bai Sui wanted him to go to the breeding base. He knew that it must be related to the deer spirit, so he didn't delay, and even didn't need anyone to lead the way. He ran towards the breeding base. He was familiar with the road and obviously had been there many times. After all, this spirit was raised by the Nara clan for generations. Bai Sui naturally had to notify the other party. As for whether he could catch up to see the deer spirit being born from the statue, it depended on his speed. Fortunately, although Nara Shikasho had been an official for so many years, he still insisted on practicing and did not fall behind in basic skills. He still arrived in time. Bai Sui raised his hand to stop the Nara clan leader who wanted to salute and greet him, and signaled him to come to see the statue and not miss the scene that might happen next. It was a pity that, except for Bai Sui, the others could only see the faint light emitted by the statue, unlike Bai Sui who is immersed in this wonderful rhythm. Bai Sui had seen changing rhythms before, just like people, which can be said to be changing every moment, but the changes were subtle, and if you didn't observe carefully, you would even ignore them. Often, only after a period of time, you would find obvious changes. But the deer spirit in front of him was not like that. His rhythm was changing drastically, from simple to complex, but it did not bring any sense of clutter to Bai Sui, but gave Bai Sui a feeling that it should be so complex. No, this word is not accurate. It should be gorgeous. Yes, the current rhythm gave Bai Sui a sense of gorgeousness. Although the overall rhythm was still a little thin, it was extremely gorgeous in some specific places. Bai Sui obviously felt sublimated in it, a transition of life class. In the eyes of others, the light of the statue became brighter and brighter, and the light gradually revealed the appearance of a deer, which was exactly the same as the statue. Moreover, the glowing deer, as soon as it appeared, made a now sound, just like a bird's cry, but this sound was very cicadier. Although everyone did not understand the meaning of the deer's cry, they could feel the joy from it. It was obviously the deer spirit celebrating its birth. Unlike others, Bai Sui understood the other party's meaning by feeling the other party's spiritual fluctuations, that is, there was no meaning, it was just a cry to express his emotions, just like a person standing on the top of a mountain, shouting loudly at the sea of clouds, the same meaning. However, the deer spirit who just called out was immediately stunned, because he did not expect to see so many people around him as soon as he opened his eyes, especially Nara Luzhang and the others, who all looked excited. No matter how you look at these people, they are not normal. That is, the deer spirit does not have the concept of cold and hot, otherwise it must shiver. Even so, the deer spirit was scared to retreat, and it was about to shrink back into the statue. At this time, Bai Sui used his spiritual sense to contact the other party and tried to communicate. When the other party first heard the message from Bai Sui's spiritual consciousness, he was a little confused. Then he was very happy and chatted with Bai Sui. It was obvious that he had been holding back for a while. Through the conversation with Lu Ling, Bai Sui learned that the other party had already had consciousness about 3 months ago, when the entire breeding base officially began to expand and arranged people to perform special sacrifices. But this consciousness was extremely weak. It could only see and hear, and could not interact with the outside world, and could not even control its own abilities. It was also during these 3 months that the frequent sacrifices of Nara's family made Lu Ling really grow stronger. Later, because of the increasingly large herd of deer, his abilities became more and more appropriate and powerful, and he gradually controlled them. Now he is a real spirit, the spirit of deer. As long as there is no deer god standing in front of him to compete with him for power, he is the god of all deer. He can control the growth and reproduction of deer, improve the physical fitness of deer, protect the health of deer, and heal the injuries of deer. Although this takes time, basically as long as he has him, plus plenty of food and environment, he will definitely make the deer herd grow and prosper. As for other abilities, there are really none. What's left is his use of his own energy. This depends on him to slowly explore, because according to the god of death, each god or spirit has different means suitable for them due to their different positions, which all need to be explored over time. After explaining the situation of the deer spirit to everyone, and then introducing the people of the Nara clan to the deer spirit, after letting them get to know each other, Bai Sui no longer paid attention. As for how Kang Higuo will use this deer-related industry to make a profit, Bai Sui felt that he had worried enough, so he should leave it to the ministers in the court to discuss. He is now considering some other things. Since the combined strength of the whole country can hatch a spirit that already has a prototype in 3 months, then can the combined strength of the whole country create a spirit from scratch? If possible, is there any aspect that they lack that can be made up by the spirit? Or can the spirit further enhance their own advantages and make their advantages become a sharp blade to pierce others? Bai Sui does not have to do everything he thinks of, especially if he is a person who forces others to do it. This matter obviously requires the collection of national resources to experiment. If it succeeds, it will be fine. If it fails, it will be a loss of a large amount of national manpower and material resources, and the civilians who have finally lived a stable life will have to bear this risk. So, Bai Sui once again threw this question to the officials in the court. As the saying goes, you should do your job when you are in your position, and you should not do your job when you are not in your position. Let them worry about this matter. Anyway, Bai Sui's main task at this stage is to expand his inner vision. As for the others, they are all secondary purposes. It is better to be able to see it, and there is no loss even if you can't see it. After all, even if a spirit is created, it is still Kang's Higuo that is truly enhanced, and the people of Kang's Higuo who benefit are still Kang's Higuo. It is of no great use to Bai Sui. It can only be used as a reference for his research on the laws of rhythm, which can be regarded as expanding Bai Sui's knowledge reserves. As the interior of Bai Sui expanded, that is, more and more areas were built in the interior of Bai Sui found that he could actually benefit from these things in the interior. All these things in the interior, their rhythms gradually wandered and collided in Bai Sui's interior as time passed, and some of them underwent strange changes. It is not known whether this change is inevitable, because their collision will eventually produce a unique rhythm, but it is extremely weak, so weak that Bai Sui, who has divine consciousness, did not notice it. Or it was when these rhythms had accumulated to a certain extent that they attracted Bai Sui's attention. Of course, this certain extent is actually relative to the rhythm that was born due to the collision, and it is still very weak in essence. Although it is weak, it has magical abilities. First of all, it can attach to the outside of other rhythms. You know, this is incredible. It's like there are 2 drops of the same water, one drop is 10 degrees, and the other drop is 20 degrees. After the 2 come into contact, they can still maintain their own temperatures. Not only do they not interact to change the temperature, but they can also be directly merged and separated because of their essence. Now this unique rhythm is like this. Not only can it be attached to any rhythm, but it can also be separated at will, and it will not affect the rhythm attached and separated by it. This really makes Bai Sui confused. And after Bai Sui's attempts, he found that this kind of rhythm and rhythm collision not only occurred in his own, but also outside the inner scene. The special rhythm generated will be directly scattered in the world. In fact, Bai Sui is also very curious. After all, even if it is scattered in the world, after so many years, when the time is in billions, it stands to reason that it will be gathered, but Bai Sui has not found it in the world for the time being. And because the number of this special rhythm generated in the inner scene is too small, it is not easy to study, because the number of this special rhythm generated by the collision of the rhythm within a certain period of time is fixed, so either extend the time dimension or increase the scope of your inner scene, so that there are more rhythms in the inner scene that can collide. In this way, this special rhythm can be generated faster, while Bai Sui conducts experiments and analysis. The reason why Bai Sui attached so much importance to it was because he found that when this special rhythm was applied to him, he had a strong feeling that he could control everything, but it was only for a moment, and the special rhythm disappeared in a moment. In order to verify his conjecture, Bai Sui had to continue to expand his inner scene, and in addition to this special rhythm, the expansion of the inner scene also brought Bai Sui a lot of additional benefits. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89 Defects. First of all, Bai Sui's own ki was changing after the golden elixir gradually merged into the Yuanshan. The original ki flowed out from the golden elixir, and then circulated through the meridians of the whole body to the desired location, but now it has changed. The current ki flows out from the golden elixir, and then passes through the Yuanshan, directly reaching the preset location, and does not need to go through the meridians, as if it jumped directly there. To Bai Sui, the original ki flow was to draw a line on it with a pen, from point A to point B. Whether you draw a straight line or a curve, you need to slide the pen on it. Now this ki flowing directly from the Yuanshan is like you grab the pen from the paper with your hand and directly point it from point A to point B. It is a kind of dimensional crushing. Of course, this is just a metaphor, not to say that the new ki is one dimension higher than the original one. In order to make it easier for himself to distinguish, Bai Sui decided to directly put the name of mana on it. As for whether it is accurate, he is the only one practicing in the whole ninja world, and he has the final say. So the mana that flows directly from the soul is called mana. The benefits that Bai Sui has obtained are also related to this mana. As long as Bai Sui's mana flows in this inner scene, it will be blessed by the rhythm of all things in the inner scene. In simple terms, 1 point of force can do 10 points of work. The rest of the extra part does not appear out of thin air, but is born by those rhythms. It is also because of this discovery that Bai Sui began to try, and only after dismantling his Taibao mansion for 180 times, he finally found out the law. Bai Sui does not know what will happen in the future. For now, the inner scene can increase Bai Sui's mana by 18 times at most, and the price is that the things in the inner scene will be damaged due to excessive pressure from the rhythm. If it is serious, it will even make this rhythm disappear directly. If it is just damaged, Bai Sui can still restore it by using magic power. If even the rhythm disappears directly, then Bai Sui can only use the inner scene to store new things, but the same thing there cannot be restored. Even if you rebuild it, it will be a new individual that is different from it. There is a way to solve this problem. The simplest way is to expand your inner scene. As long as there are enough things in your inner scene, the pressure shared by each thing will be less. Another way is much more difficult, that is to improve the level of the rhythm of things in the inner scene, just like the sublimation of the deer spirit after its birth. If the rhythm of these things is also sublimated or evolved, it can also withstand greater pressure, but this is too difficult and it is not worth it. Of course, this is not worth it from the perspective that Bai Sui now has the entire ninja world and no one competes with him. If there is only a fixed territory, then this path can only be chosen. To sum up, as long as there are enough things in Bai Sui's inner vision, the time of his 18-fold increase in mana can be extended accordingly, and because the things in the inner vision have a certain degree of self-healing, Bai Sui believes that when his inner vision is large enough, he can even make this 18-fold increase in mana permanent. This is the increase in mana from the inner vision. The mana itself is many times stronger than before. First of all, the quantity has not shrunk, but the quality has been improved, and the loss in the circulation when using the true key has been saved. Not only has the efficiency been increased by nearly 1-fold, but it is also equivalent to increasing the overall quality by more than 30%. As for the spiritual consciousness, it directly expands the original 10-meter range that penetrates the body to 20 meters, that is, a spherical range with a diameter of 40 meters, that is, a volume of more than 260,000 cubic meters. In terms of volume alone, it is not much smaller than Uchiha Madara's power suit Susanoo, that is, it is not as good as the true Thousand Hands, whether sitting or standing. After all, the true Thousand Hands standing up are at least 1,000 meters high. Although size does not directly determine combat effectiveness, when the opponent is big enough, you have to choose to avoid it. In fact, Bai Sui had thought about what this true Thousand Hands was before. You must know that when Indra and Ashura fought, they did not use the Sage mode, but the true Thousand Hands that were opened by gathering the power of everyone's bond. Although Ashura, as the son of Otsutsuki Haguramo, is very likely to be born with an ancestor's body, why did he go to the trouble of saying it was the power of bond? If we exclude the possibility that Ashura was trying to stimulate his brother Indra, then does this sentence contain the reason why this wood release is so powerful? After all, the original function of chakra is to be used by the six-path sage to connect the spiritual energy between people, and he also spread chakra in order to open people's hearts. So the meaning behind Ashura's words, could it be that everyone connects and transmits the spiritual energy to him through chakra, and it is for this reason that Ashura calls it the power of bond? This is why Hashirama Senju can use such illegal techniques, because Uchiha Madara's power suit, Susanoo, only relies on his own energy, while Hashirama's true Thousand Hands actually contains the spiritual energy of other people. As for the spiritual energy of other people, whether it was reincarnated with chakra since the Ashura era, or whether Hashirama Senju obtained it by gaining the trust of others, it is still unknown. However, if you really want to know, it is simple. Just let Hashirama Senju use the true Thousand Hands once, and compare it with the size in Kashiwaho's previous life memory. If it is really the spiritual energy obtained by Hashirama in this life, then the size should be much smaller, because in this life, he did not unify all the ninja clans of the Land of Fire and establish his Konoha. Spiritual energy, to put it bluntly, is still the power of the mind, and Kashiwaho is now distressed because of his increasingly powerful soul, because he actually takes the path of first action and in life, but the latter life has not caught up. Now, Bai Sui, on the one hand, needs to expand his inner scene to strengthen himself, and on the other hand, because of the increasingly powerful Yuan Shin, he begins to oppress his body. Although the Yuan Palace itself is not a physical entity, it is a physical entity to the Yuan Shin. Therefore, the increasingly huge Yuan Shin has weakened the Yuan Palace. Bai Sui himself feels that the Yuan Palace will crack at any time. Therefore, Bai Sui has to call on part of the power from his Yuan Shin to nourish the flesh so that this flesh can carry a stronger Yuan Shin. For Bai Sui now, the flesh is actually not a necessity. Although he has not yet cultivated a true Yang Shin, because of the nourishment of the golden elixir, Bai Sui's Yuan Shin even has a trace of gold, and is no longer a ghost in the ordinary sense. Although the current flesh can still provide protection for Bai Sui's Yuan Shin, that's all. The rest, whether it is enhancement or anything else, can still be done by the Yuan Shin. Even without the restraint of the physical body, after Bai Sui's soul left his body, the first thing that came out was his spiritual consciousness domain. Without the barrier of the physical body, the scope of the entire domain directly expanded tenfold to 200 meters, that is, a huge sphere with a diameter of 400 meters. In terms of volume alone, it was almost catching up with the real thousands of hands of the pillar. Not only that, without the encumbrance of the physical body, the soul could fly into the sky and hide in the ground as if nothing was there. Its speed was so fast that it was simply teleportation, or it should be said that it was countless continuous teleportations. Because in the spiritual consciousness domain of Bai Sui's soul could directly teleport to it, that is, it could directly teleport within a diameter of 400 meters. If it was 400 meters, it would teleport one after another. In fact, it was no different from teleportation in the eyes of those who did not understand. The only problem was that without the protection of the physical body, Any impact would directly act on the soul, and such injuries were difficult to make up for, and would even affect future practice. Only after reaching the realm of Yangshen, where gathering and dispersing are truly determined by the heart, did Bai Sui dare to abandon the physical body with confidence. So even though he now feels the shackles of the physical body on himself, Bai Sui can only endure it. It can be said that with the encumbrance of the physical body, Bai Sui can only exert 1 or 2% of his strength, and the rest is restricted by the power of the Yuan Shen. Since Bai Sui could see the rhythm, he has a more intuitive feeling for many things that he could only guess and grope before, such as his storage jade pendant. After previous attempts, 2 storage jade pendants, if placed together for a long time, will cause irreversible damage. Now from the perspective of rhythm, this is because the rhythms emitted by the 2 jade pendants interfere with each other, and the 2 rhythms will eventually be damaged after a long collision. The ninja sealing scrolls do not have such problems. From the perspective of rhythm, it can be found that the rhythms of these sealing scrolls are very harmonious, and they do not interfere with each other, but they cannot nest. The reason why Bai Sui's storage jade pendant can store sealing scrolls is also because the rhythms of the 2 do not interfere. Although he didn't know how talented the person who first developed the seal scroll was, it didn't stop Bai Sui from copying his homework. He repaired his storage jade pendant in a targeted manner according to the rhythm emitted by the seal scroll. After thousands of attempts, he finally succeeded in stacking his storage jade pendants in large quantities without being destroyed. Although this was of no use to Bai Sui now, after all, he could put the seal scroll in the storage jade pendant, which was better than wearing a string of jade pendants on his body. And the reason why he couldn't just use ninjutsu before was because the rhythm of chakra and true ki was different, but after having mana, Bai Sui found that the fluctuation of his mana could change the rhythm to a certain extent according to his own wishes. I don't know about the others, but at least he can directly adapt the rhythm to the appearance of true ki and chakra, although I don't know if this means that mana is 1 level higher than these 2 energies, so it can be degraded into their appearance. But at least, Bai Sui doesn't have the corresponding instructions for the use of mana now, so it's good to have a good one now. Anyway, Kashiwa Sui was very happy. After all, the ninjas around him could use such magical ninjutsu, but he couldn't. He could only control the energy directly. Anyway, Kashiwa Sui felt that he could only use a shotgun as a fire stick, and now Kashiwa Sui finally knew how to use the shotgun in his hand. Although for some reasons, he could not only use the original number 4 bullets, but could only change to number 12, but he could still use it after changing the barrel, which was better than using it directly as a stick. Although after Kashiwa Sui's attempts, he found that his mana could only imitate the rhythm of chakra, not the real chakra, because the real chakra was transferable, just like the chakra of the 9 tails could be distributed to others. After Kashiwa Sui's mana was given to other ninjas, it could not be used normally. It would immediately change the rhythm and jump out of the chakra band because there was no suppression of Kashiwa Sui's spirit. Later, after many tests by Bai Sui, it was found that Bai Sui's mana was still mana. Those changed rhythms did not disappear, but were hidden. Under the suppression of Bai Sui's soul, these changed rhythms would be hidden in the deepest layer of mana, so as to cooperate with Bai Sui to complete those ninjutsu. However, once out of the control of the soul, those rhythms hidden in the deepest part of mana would burst out and immediately restore the essence of its mana. Therefore, the ninjutsu that Bai Sui could use were also those that took effect immediately. Once he wanted to get out of the body and set a trap, he could not do it temporarily. But even so, it was enough for Bai Sui. He not only tried the 5 basic attributes of ninjutsu of wind, thunder, earth, fire, and wind, but also tried various secret techniques, and even tried to study various blood limit. It's a pity that the sealing techniques mastered by the Uzumaki clan, most of which belong to delayed ninjutsu, resulting in Bai Sui only pretending after learning it. For example, the 8 diagrams seal cast by Bai Sui, after planting the seal on the opponent, the mana will immediately return to its original state because it is out of the suppression of the Yuanshin, which not only makes the seal invalid, but also directly blocks the opponent's meridians, or destroys the opponent's body. The reason for the seal is that you don't want to hurt the opponent and control the opponent, which directly leads to the direct use of Bai Sui's seal. As for attacking the opponent by such means, please, you can already seal the opponent, isn't it better to use mana to attack the opponent directly? Direct, straightforward, simple, and efficient. Later, after trying, unless Bai Sui himself extends a ray of mana from his body and connects himself to the seal, so that the mana in the opponent's seal can be suppressed by the Yuanshan all the time, thereby maintaining the effect of the seal. It can only be said to be useful, but in fact it is useless. Bai Sui also tried some wood escape ninjutsu himself and found that there was no problem with the ordinary ones, and they could all be used. Even because of his 18-fold increase, the power was stronger than that of Senju Hashirama. However, because the immortal technique has not been mastered by Kashiwasu, and no one in the entire Kang Kingdom has mastered it, so for the time being, there is no need to think about the 1,000-armed Buddha, but the giant wooden arhat can still be opened. Kashiwasu himself is actually looking forward to the conductivity of chakra. After all, in the plot of the previous life of Naruto, this chakra is simply a super-efficient universal energy. No matter who it is, when someone else's chakra isn't put into their body, they can use it without hindrance. The Otsutsuki clan can even directly seize other people's chakra. To Kashiwasu, it feels like everyone's chakra is the same. You know, the composition of chakra is a mixture of spiritual energy and physical energy. Is there no difference between everyone? Are all people the same? If it is different, why can the produced chakra be universal? You know, even human organ transplants have rejection reactions. It's hard to say about the ninja world. There are all kinds of plug-and-play eyes, and cells between the 1,000 hands can be directly transferred to the body. Maybe everyone in the ninja world is really the same in terms of underlying logic. Although from the rhythm of Kashiwasui, everyone is unique, but maybe the ninja world is so magical. At the same time, Kashiwasui also discovered that he could see through the main body and the clone directly through the rhythm, which is also a kind of ability that is better than nothing. Originally, Kashiwasui thought that he had no surprises in Kangzihago, but he didn't want to talk about immortal arts and the 3 holy places when chatting with the god of death. The god of death not only knows immortal arts, but also knows the so-called holy places, and also said that there were a total of 12 holy places in the past. Later, because of a catastrophe that fell from the sky, many holy places were damaged. As for how many holy places are left, he is not sure, but the 3 holy places mentioned by Kashiwasui are indeed among the 12 holy places in the past. This discovery made Kashiwasui very happy, and he tried to communicate further with the god of death, hoping to find out more inside information. Since the god of death was willing to talk about the Holy Land, he actually knew that Bai Sui would continue to ask. He did not have a seizure to play with Bai Sui, so he openly said some things that he thought were unimportant. It turned out that 1,000 years ago, this world was not called the ninja world, but called itself the spirit world, which means that all things have spirits. On this planet, all species lived happily at that time, because every species can practice. Among humans, those who practiced were called witches, sorcerers, wizards, etc. These people practiced their own bodies and spirits on the one hand, and on the other hand, they attracted natural energy for their use. The same is true for other species, but compared to humans who find it easier to practice, other species first have to face a difficult problem of enlightenment, so the entire spirit world is gradually occupied by humans. It's just that, as mentioned before, not only humans, but all creatures on this planet can practice. Although it is difficult for other species to practice, they are on par with humans based on their numerical advantage. It's just that humans are the same race after all, and other species even have natural enemies, and eventually fall apart. But after they fought with humans, they also let people see their strength, so in order to show their recognition of their strength, they gave the other side 12 spaces where natural energy converged. On the one hand, they wanted to divide the other side, and on the other hand, they wanted to give them a way out so that they would not fight to the death with humans. Of course, there are not only 12 such spaces, and there are also some that were controlled by the powerful humans at that time. Although the first order did not really reach 1,000, I still thank everyone for their support, so today is still an update of 10,000 words. This is a thank you to everyone, and starting tomorrow I will return to 4K and eat full attendance. In short, thank you all for your support. Chapter 90. True? False? In fact, the natural energy of the spirit world is biased towards positive attributes, and in contrast, there are natural energies that are biased towards negative attributes. And these natural energies with negative attributes did not split into pieces, but gathered in one place to condense the original underworld. Later, after countless years of transformation, the original chaotic underworld was transformed into the later Pure Land. Unfortunately, It was also because of that catastrophe that the complete Pure Land was broken, and he, the god of death who had been sealed for 1,000 years, didn't know what it would become. From this, Bai Sui thought of a country, the country of ghosts, where the country still passed on the inheritance of witches, and there was also a terrible monster that was said to be able to destroy the world. In the past, when Bai Sui was traveling in the ninja world, although he also went to the country of ghosts, because his strength was not enough at that time, after the other party refused all outsiders to enter, Bai Sui left directly. After all, the ninja world refuses outsiders to visit. What else can you say? Relying on your own strength, try to force your way in? There is no grudge between the two sides, there is no need for this at all. As for now, it is different. Now Bai Sui has something he wants to know. Although he can't force his way into the other country, he can use some means, such as negotiating in the name of the country, etc. At that time, the country of demons chose to refuse outsiders to enter because of the ninja civil war. Now that decades have passed, maybe they have allowed them to go. Of course, this is just an extension of Bai Sui's thinking. The most important thing is to learn more about the inside story from the death god, who is finally willing to speak. First of all, the 12 holy places are snakes, frogs, mollusks, primates, birds, dogs, cats, fish, clams, flying insects, plants, and spirits. Of course, this so-called classification is actually divided by humans for the convenience of memory. Many of them are mixed, but they are named after the more common ones. The others are relatively easy to understand, but Bai Sui doesn't quite understand this spirit. The god of death explained, this kind of spirits includes spirits like the deer spirit, and there are also many that were originally dead, but were nourished by natural energy for a long time and gave birth to spiritual intelligence. In short, all dead things that did not have any spiritual intelligence before and later gave birth to consciousness are included. After that, the god of death focused on some things related to the underworld, among which the one that impressed Bai Sui was Hades. The reason why it was so impressive was that Bai Sui had Hades in his memory of his previous life, but at that time Hades was already controlled by someone. Just like when the nine-tailed fox was controlled by Uchiha Madara, a kaleidoscope pattern appeared in its eyes, and the eyes of Hades also looked like the eyes of the Samsara eye. The person who has the eyes of the Samsara eye and has occupied the underworld is likely to be the work of the Otsutsuki Haguramo. After all, he is the one who fits the plot of the previous life. Thinking of the Otsutsuki family's eyes of Samsara, Bai Sui suddenly had an idea, and following the touch of his own soul, he let his mana flow out of his soul and flow into the entire Niwan Palace. No, not in the middle, but to apply the mana to the entire Niwan Palace, and the mana surged more and more, and finally wrapped the entire Niwan Palace with 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside. Suddenly, these mana vibrated together, driving the entire Niwan Palace to emit a different rhythm. In this process, the entire Niwan Palace was also rapidly dissolving and reconstructing as the rhythm changed. In Bai Sui's perception, this process was very slow, but the death god on the opposite side was a little confused. The two were talking well. Why did Bai Sui suddenly close his eyes, and he could feel that Bai Sui's energy was rapidly lost. Before the death god asked what happened, Bai Sui had opened his eyes, but not 2 eyes but 3 eyes, and there was a vertical pupil at the center of Bai Sui's eyebrows. When the vertical pupil saw him, the death god immediately felt panic, as if everything about himself was seen through by this eye. In fact, this is indeed the case. Before, Bai Sui's perception of the rhythm was just a feeling, just like hearing a sound, but now he is equivalent to being able to directly see the movement of sound waves in the medium, and intuitively see all the rhythms presented in front of him. Not only that, this eye, Bai Sui felt like it was a window open for his soul in his body, which could not only directly break the barrier of the body and extend the power of the soul directly, but also provide protection for the soul. Although compared with his body, the eyes are more fragile, but just like the glass windows on the wall, although the glass is more fragile than the wall, it can also block the wind and rain, and provide a certain degree of defense, which is better than nothing. And I don't know why, even the soul can't see the rhythm, but after the conversion of the vertical pupil, it can be seen directly, which is very magical. Although the principle is not clear, Bai Sui is still very happy to use it. After all, this is a part of his body, and it is directly operated by the soul. Obviously, it is not a bad thing. It can only show that his knowledge reserve is too shallow, and there are too many things he doesn't understand. Although it consumes a lot of mana, And even Bai Sui needs a few days to recover, but the mood at the moment is really good, so he declined the good intentions of the god of death and motioned the other party to continue. After confirming that Bai Sui only had an extra eye and was not seriously injured, the god of death continued to speak with the same thoughts as before. Although Hades is the ruler of the underworld itself was not born long ago. In the words of the god of death, he is considered to be a relatively early god on this planet. The underworld was built only about 3 or 4,000 years ago, and Hades was born from the underworld after that. Although he was born with many powers of the underworld, he was born too recently and his strength is somewhat insufficient. The god of death said, "Even I have been sealed directly until now, so Hades would not be much better. Remember what I said before, that not only can I not go directly to the underworld, but I also feel that the underworld is rejecting me." At that time, I knew that Hades must have a problem. Even if he did not fall, he was already controlled by the other party. The god of death was not wrong about this. Because the Hades in Bai Sui's memory had already become the summoned creature in the eyes of Samsara. As for what happened later, under Bai Sui's soft and hard persuasion, the god of death finally told him about the catastrophe that weighed on his heart. It was indeed somewhat different from what Bai Sui thought. It was said that more than 1,000 years ago, a fireball suddenly fell from the sky. After the fireball landed, 2 strange-looking people walked out of it, and they both had strange eyes. The 2 were a man and a woman, a master and a servant. Judging from their words, it should be a noble who brought his maid here to perform a mission. At the beginning, the spirit world sent people to negotiate with the other party. After all, judging from the other party's ability to cross the void, it would definitely not be a weakling. But the other party had no intention of talking, and directly threw a group of evil creatures from his sleeves. This creature swelled up in the wind and was as big as a hill before landing. This monster even penetrated into the earth from its limbs, turning into countless roots to wantonly extract the energy of this planet. Its tail closed and turned into a giant tree towering into the sky. In just a few breaths, this monster turned into a demon tree that wanted to devour this planet in front of them. After that, the demon tree frantically absorbed the energy of the planet, turning it into nutrients to supply the buds on its branches. It seemed that it wanted to use all the life and energy of the planet as a sacrifice to produce a fruit. At that time, all the creatures on the planet stood up to fight against it, because according to the speed at which the demon tree extracted energy, the planet would be useless in a month at most, and no one would be able to recover by then. So everyone started a tug of war with the other side. The strength of the 2 people on the other side was already good, and then with the help of the demon tree, some creatures with low strength were turned into white vegetative people, and they obeyed the orders of the 2 people without fear of death. In terms of hard power, the entire spiritual world is not afraid of the 2 of them, but the other side's demon tree is too evil. Basically, all life energy can be absorbed by the other side instantly. Only a large amount of pure natural energy can make the demon tree choke, but it is just choking. It can quickly absorb and devour it with its own strong physique. By comparing the demon tree, they figured out that the 2 people from outer space could only absorb life energy, but not natural energy. So they gathered all the strong men who specialized in natural energy and launched a siege on the 2. However, they didn't expect that the other party's eyes were different. They used a kind of ability to make themselves disappear in a short time, and then suddenly appeared again. In this way, they were caught off guard and killed many strong men. But this also revealed the opponent's trump card. After that, the strong men in the spirit world worked together and suppressed the 2 of them many times. But every time they wanted to kill the 2, they controlled the demon tree to concentrate all its energy to attack the center of the earth, as if they were going to die together. Everyone had to retreat and look for another opportunity to assassinate. At this time, the woman among the 2 took the initiative to contact us, saying that she could cooperate with us to kill the man. At that time, as long as the man died, she could control the demon tree to stop squeezing the planet. The man's body plus the energy absorbed by the demon tree was enough to produce fruit. After getting the fruit, she would leave here and report back. Otherwise, even if we killed the 2 of them now, more tribesmen would come in the future. Although the death gods suspected that this was a trap, they did not have any better way, so they followed the woman's instructions and cooperated with her to kill the man and push him into the mouth of the demon tree. After that, the demon tree did as the woman said, stopped absorbing energy from inside and outside, and produced fruit. The woman suddenly showed the ability of teleportation that she had been hiding before and ate the fruit. The death gods thought that the matter had come to an end, but they did not expect that the woman's strength would be greatly improved after eating the fruit. It can be described as turning the world upside down. She actually performed a super large illusion directly on the entire spirit world. This illusion not only has a wide range, but also has strong power. It directly controls nearly 90% of the creatures in the spirit world. As for those who were not controlled, the woman found them one by one, either killing and absorbing them or sealing them. They simply did not put all their hopes on the woman at that time. Remember when we talked about the 12 holy lands, there was a spirit. At that time, the god of pregnancy and the spirit of all living things took the initiative to put their consciousness into the demon tree, for the sake of the spirit world. They were thinking of destroying the demon tree or fruit from the inside at a critical moment. But they didn't expect that the demon tree was really powerful. It directly supplied the consciousness of the god of pregnancy and the spirit of all living things into the fruit as nutrients. After that, the fruit was eaten by the woman. At that time, the god of pregnancy and the spirit of all living things, who were only vaguely conscious, immediately used their authority and power to make the woman pregnant and give birth to 2 sons, just to disperse the woman's strength. The effect was very good. Not only did it directly rob a lot of energy from the woman, but it also caused the woman to suffer a heavy blow. It was also because of this heavy blow that everyone had time to raise the 2 children to adulthood. Of course, because of their own specialness, they actually grew very fast. They grew up in just a few months. And everyone also found that although they had no memories before reincarnation, they still had some weak emotions. The most basic point is that they are willing to seal the woman together for the sake of the spirit world. After that, everyone was surprised to find that one of the children had the talent to learn and use natural energy. You know, the 2 people who came from outer space before could not do that. So at that time, they sent a remaining holy land to teach him. After that, the 2 children really lived up to everyone's expectations and successfully sealed their mother. As for the situation afterwards, the god of death said that he didn't know, because he was sealed in the process of helping the 2 people to seal the woman. Looking at the god of death in front of him, Bai Sui didn't say it in the end. But he knew that the god of death in front of him didn't tell the truth, at least not all of it. This is not only his intuition, but also what his vertical pupils saw. Although it is not to write a lie directly on the head of the god of death, through Bai Sui's vertical pupils, it is found that when the other party says something, his own rhythm will change slightly. If it was just relying on feelings before, Bai Sui couldn't feel it, but it is different now. The changes are equivalent to automatically changing color in the field of vision, which is eye-catching, and Bai Sui immediately knows that there is a problem here. In fact, if you think about it, you will know. If the whole thing is really as the god of death said, then after sealing Kaguya Otsutsuki, why didn't the 2 of them unseal the god of death? Why even occupy the underworld? This may be because the god of death thought that Bai Sui knew nothing and used the words to deceive Bai Sui. After all, what good is it for Bai Sui to talk about these things? In Bai Sui's opinion, in this story, the god of death is absolutely great and glorious, and this may be the answer. After all, the part that the other party deliberately concealed must be unusual, which means that the god of death may have played a very dishonorable role in this matter. But no matter what, the words of the god of death can at least be regarded as a part of the reasons and details of what Kaguya Otsutsuki did at that time for Bai Sui. After all, if you listen to both sides, you will be enlightened, and if you listen to only one side, you will be dark. As long as things are told by people, they will inevitably be mixed with personal emotions. If you can get more information from different angles in the future, you will be able to get a glimpse of the whole picture of the matter after synthesis. Ignoring the god of death who was still performing in front of Bai Sui went back to study his third eye. After some research, other functions aside, the most significant point is that the pressure of the soul on the body has become less. The entire Niwan Palace, that is, the current 43 eyes, no longer have the feeling that it will break at any time. Another thing is that this eye can emit a ray of light. As for what the use of this light is, it has not been discovered yet except that it is super bright. As for other abilities, it is to strengthen some of the original sensory abilities. In the communication with the god of death, the biggest gain is to know the location of the 3 holy places. Among them, the closest to Bai Sui is the Wet Bone Forest. Although it is not in the territory of Kangxi country, it is in the territory of Huazi country, which is really not far for Bai Sui. In the next few days, Bai Sui went to the court to make a circle and confirmed that there was nothing for him to do. After that, He simply arranged some affairs in the Taibao mansion, and Bai Sui went into seclusion here. The content of this seclusion is very simple, which is to extend his inner vision and extend it with all his strength towards the direction of the wet bone forest. As for the reason, anything that is engraved in the inner scene is equivalent to defining the territory, which is the range that Bai Sui can freely shuttle. After all, the god of death told a lot of lies. Who knows what the other party's attitude was when he met the slug immortal? Although the other party in the previous life was gentle and elegant. Don't forget that Bai Sui did not take the regular route this time. If the signed contract scroll is equivalent to obtaining the key to the door, and obtaining the invitation and permission of the other party, then Bai Sui's behavior is equivalent to finding that the other party's window is not closed, so he climbed through the window to check. It's hard to say what other people's reactions are. Anyway, Bai Sui feels that he will not be very happy. However, according to the god of death, this is actually a backup channel, which is nothing. But Bai Sui still thinks that he should be fully prepared. After all, his life is his own, and it doesn't take much effort to be more cautious. After all, the most abundant thing he has now is time. So, this retreat lasted for nearly a year, and finally extended the scope of his inner scene to the door of the wet bone forest. In fact, a lot of things happened during this year. First of all, Kashiwasu's nephew Uzumaki Kyohei, through his own efforts and the relationship with Kashiwasu, successfully got a position in the Ministry of Finance's Kanibu division, and also had his grandson, which means that Kashiwasu is already a great-grandfather in this ninja world. Well, from now on, you have to act in accordance with your generation, be more stable, and never do anything rash. After making all the preparations, Kashiwasu embarked on a journey to the wet bone forest to visit the slug sage. Chapter 91 Immortal. Everything went surprisingly smoothly. Whether it was going to the wet bone forest or visiting the slug sage, everything went so smoothly. The slug sage introduced her to Kashiwasu in a friendly manner, saying that her name was Living Slug, and that she was very happy to meet a non-ninja strongman like Kashiwasu, and told Kashiwasu another version of the history of the ninja world. First of all, the series of the spirit world is no different from what the god of death said, except that it started with the advent of Kaguya Otsutsuki. It was Ishiki Otsutsuki and Kaguya Otsutsuki who, with overwhelming strength, overwhelmed all the strong men in the spirit world, and then planted the sacred tree in the spirit world. It is said that the fruit of the sacred tree originally took 1,000 years to mature, but the spirit world greatly accelerated this process because of its abundant energy. After that, Kaguya Otsutsuki, who was originally going to be used as a sacrifice, joined forces with the strong men in the spirit world to sneak attack Ishiki Otsutsuki. In that battle, Ishiki Otsutsuki killed most of the strong men in the spirit world, causing the remaining people to not compete with Kaguya Otsutsuki, so that she could eat the fruit directly. It is said that Kaguya Otsutsuki originally did not want to eat the fruit, but wanted to hand it over to her family to get a job and thus improve her status. But unexpectedly, at the last minute, the remaining strong men in the spirit world tore up the previous agreement, thinking that as long as someone could eat the fruit, they would have a chance to change the fate of the spirit world being bullied, so they fought with Kaguya Otsutsuki and wanted to snatch the fruit. Kaguya Otsutsuki, who was outnumbered, had to swallow the fruit in the end, gain powerful strength, and directly suppress the entire spirit world. However, because she swallowed the fruit privately, she would be punished by her family even if she brought another fruit back, so she simply decided to go all out and let another fruit be bred in the spirit world to improve her own strength, and she could also use the sacred tree to make people into a biological weapon through a sacrifice ceremony to fight against her family. Kaguya Otsutsuki, who devoured the fruit, possessed a power that was superior to the entire spirit world. In the early days, she also stopped the war between the two most powerful countries at that time for the peace of the spirit world. Later, when she found that most of those who prevented her from taking the fruit away were gods. So she sealed all kinds of gods and unified the entire spirit world, cutting off the offerings to those gods. Seeing this, the gods walked around, not only gathering all the surviving gods, but also unifying the strong men of humans and the Holy Land. And on the surface, a human strongman was sent to seduce Kaguya Otsutsuki, who was not very worldly, but he did not expect Kaguya Otsutsuki to be an ascetic. So the gods activated another plan, using the authority of the gods, and entangled all the believers and people, and forced Kaguya Otsutsuki to give birth to 2 lives. After that, Everyone took advantage of the time when Kaguya Otsutsuki was pregnant and her strength dropped greatly, and they attacked together, but they didn't expect that they overestimated their own strength. Even if Kaguya Otsutsuki was pregnant, she was stronger than everyone else combined. But pregnancy had a huge impact on Kaguya Otsutsuki, not only physically but also psychologically, which led to the failure of the sneak attack, but most of those people escaped with their lives. Although they all suffered considerable injuries, they were given another chance after all. Later, they found that Kaguya Otsutsuki knew nothing about raising children, so they took this opportunity to let the people around Kaguya Otsutsuki propose to find someone to raise her 2 children. Since all the children in the Otsutsuki clan were collectively raised, Kaguya Otsutsuki did not doubt it and directly let everyone take the 2 children away. Although the 2 children were born smart, they fell into the hands of these people. Every day, they instilled Kaguya Otsutsuki's evil deeds into the 2 people, subtly changing their minds, and their hearts gradually shifted towards the sentient beings in the spiritual world. Finally, under their deliberate guidance, the 2 children saw the scene of people sacrificing to the sacred tree and turning into biological weapons. Although those people were indeed voluntary, under the teaching and guidance of the people in the spirit world, this matter became the beginning of the mother and son's feud. In the days that followed, under the deliberate guidance of everyone, coupled with the prejudice against their mother, Otsutsuki Hagoromo and Otsutsuki Hamura finally agreed to the proposal of the people in the spirit world to seal Otsutsuki Kaguya. In fact, at the beginning, the idea of the people in the spirit world was to kill Otsutsuki Kaguya, but the 2 Otsutsuki brothers disagreed. Later, the people in the spirit world wanted to secretly kill Otsutsuki Kaguya, but found that the other party was simply immortal, and finally they could only seal Otsutsuki Kaguya. Because in the past when fighting with Otsutsuki Ishiki, they found that natural energy was a good way to deal with Otsutsuki, so when they found that they were qualified to learn, they also taught them. In the end, it was really relying on the natural energy of Otsutsuki Kaguya's containment that they successfully sealed it. But later, because the people in the spirit world had tried to kill Kaguya Otsutsuki directly, the 2 Otsutsuki brothers were angered, and everyone left in a bad mood. Later, Otsutsuki Hagoromo founded the ninja sect and passed on chakra to the world. Many gods also began to study the chakra in secret. When they discovered that chakra has strong conductivity, heritability and versatility, many gods began to spy on chakra. At that time, they knew that they were not Otsutsuki Hagoromo's opponent, so they started to attack those ninjas who had obtained chakra. When they were alive, they were not easy to start because they were guarded by Otsutsuki Hagoromo at that time. Later, they found that the souls of ninjas still carried chakra after their death, so they decomposed these souls into the purest chakra in the underworld, on the one hand for research, and on the other hand for strengthening themselves. Later, this matter was discovered by Otsutsuki Hagoromo. When he learned that the person who taught him since childhood was secretly destroying other people's souls just to obtain the weak chakra, he immediately sealed all the surviving gods at that time, and personally took charge of the entire underworld to prevent anyone from stealing the souls of ninjas. It is precisely because the gods of the underworld have been sealed that the underworld is basically unmanaged now. As long as you are strong enough, you can use your own strength to rush out of the underworld and reincarnate in the entire ninja world. It is also because all the gods have disappeared, and there are fewer and fewer people in the entire world who truly use natural energy, and the number of ninjas is increasing. The name of the ninja world has replaced the spirit world. Chapter 92 Scroll. When listening to the Slug Sage's story, Bai Sui nodded frequently, because judging from the rhythm he saw, this Slug Sage was much more sincere than the god of death. Although his words clearly meant to put all the responsibility on the gods, at least there were fewer adaptations. I think this version is closer to the real situation at the time, but it contains information about the role of the 12 holy places. I am afraid that I will have to ask other people about it. It is unlikely to hear the truth about this part from the 3 holy places. However, Bai Sui's purpose of coming here is not only to explore the history of the ninja world, but more importantly, he wants to understand the fairy art and the part about natural energy. Under the explanation of the Slug Sage, I learned that this so-called fairy art was actually created by Otsutsuki Hagoromo, because he was the first person to try to merge natural energy and chakra. In the past, although their spiritual world also merged life energy and natural energy, it was not called fairy art, but called witchcraft, spiritual power and other names. As for these so-called immortals, it is actually a title for natural energy that has been cultivated to a certain level. It also rose after Otsutsuki Haguramo. And after the popularization of the slug immortal, the chakra in the entire ninja world is actually showing an upward trend. The three holy places have concluded after research that it is because of the seal set by Otsutsuki Haguramo and Otsutsuki Hamura. That seal is not just hanging high in the sky, adding a moon to the planet. That seal is not just to seal Otsutsuki Kaguya in the sky, but also to extract her chakra all the time and dissipate it to this land. This is also what the three holy places have observed for thousands of years. Otherwise, according to what Otsutsuki Haguramo said at the time, the total amount of chakra is fixed, because this energy is a specialty of the sacred tree and cannot be generated naturally. But don't forget those dead ninjas, their souls will carry part of the chakra to the underworld. Logically, the chakra in the ninja world will only become less and less. How can there be so many strong people who use chakra like now? This is unreasonable. Bai Sui also nodded. In his past life, there was such a saying that the total amount of chakra is constant. Although this is actually somewhat inconsistent with the current situation, there is no way to further explore the truth and principle under the current circumstances, so let's assume this statement is true. After that, Bai Sui asked the slug immortal about natural energy. After all, the slug immortal also said that there were also applications of natural energy and physical energy in the past. Although this fairy art cannot imitate all fairy arts 100% due to the special nature of chakra, at least he has learned all the fairy arts from the slug immortal. As for the use of pure natural energy, the slug immortal really has it here, and he told Bai Sui directly without hiding it. So Bai Sui lived in this wetbone forest for 2 months. Fortunately, Bai Sui had already practiced fasting, otherwise it would be really difficult to find a living environment that he could make by himself in this wetbone forest. 2 months later, Bai Sui left the wetbone forest with not only a head full of knowledge, but also a scroll. This scroll was the contract scroll of the slug sage. Since the chakra imitated by Bai Sui could not be stored for a long time after leaving the body, there was no way to sign a contract with the slug sage to establish a relationship. However, the slug sage said that this scroll could be taken back by Bai Sui and given to someone he trusted, which could be regarded as helping the slug sage find a spokesperson for the outside world. So Bai Sui told the slug sage about the situation of the Uzumaki clan. It can only be said that the two sides are quite compatible. They are both proficient in auxiliary abilities. After listening, the slug sage also readily agreed. After returning to Kang country, Bai Sui handed the scroll to the current King Kang for processing, but only required that at least one person from his nephew Uzumaki Kyohei's lineage must sign a contract. This can be regarded as a gift left by Bai Sui for his blood relatives. As for their future development, it depends on themselves. As for King Kang and his men, they were extremely happy after receiving such a help, especially when they learned that this was not only a healing summoning beast, but also a key to the inheritance of immortal arts. They were even more surprised. After all, the power of the immortal arts used by Hashirama Senju was obvious to all. Now that such a powerful inheritance was placed in front of everyone, who would not be moved? Seeing the excitement of the crowd, Bai Sui had to pour a basin of cold water on them to cool them down, and told them the difficulties and consequences of practicing immortal arts. Unexpectedly, they did not care, and said that such a powerful art should have so many restrictions, which did not discourage their enthusiasm at all. Bai Sui did not care about them. After all, they were all adults and could pay for their own actions. Bai Sui had already made the consequences clear. If they still did so, it would be up to them. In fact, Bai Sui had raised questions about the dangers of practicing immortal arts. Slug Sage said that this should be because chakra is inherently in conflict with natural energy. As for why the current ninjas can practice immortal arts when chakra conflicts with natural energy, Slug Sage believes that this is because of the hereditary nature of chakra, inherited from the ability of Otsutsuki Haguramo. As for why Otsutsuki Haguramo can practice immortal arts, it is very likely because they were born through prayers by spiritual beings and gained the corresponding abilities, and then he passed this ability to future generations with chakra. And those ninjas who can practice immortal arts should be descendants who inherited the ability of the six-path sage, which is a relatively successful case of atavism. This statement has been unanimously recognized by the three holy places. After all, they have been directly or indirectly accepting some ninjas in the past 1,000 years. Although most of those ninjas have not succeeded in their practice, those who have succeeded, in their opinion, have more or less inherited some characteristics of the Six Paths sage. As a result, before Kashiwasa had been living in Kangxi country for long, he received information sent by King Kang, or an invitation. It is said that Uchiha Madara is about to fight with Senju Hashirama again. Seeing this, Kashiwasa couldn't help but shake his head secretly, knowing that Uchiha Madara felt that his strength was declining with age, and wanted to fight with Senju Hashirama when he was at the peak of his strength. Compared with watching the fight directly, Kashiwasa decided to talk to Uchiha Madara first, and at the same time to resolve the confusion in his heart. Chapter 93 Stone Tablet. Bai Sui soon arrived at the kingdom of the group. With Bai Sui's current status, Uchiha Madara had already known about it before he arrived. After not seeing each other for many years, Madara's face had already shown the vicissitudes of time. For some reason, Madara looked much older than his peers. Seeing Bai Sui's still-looking face, Uchiha-ban also sighed, "You are still so young, as if the years can't leave any traces on your face. But I am much worse. Now I feel my body is getting weaker and weaker. This duel with Senju Hashirama is likely to be my last battle. I am a ninja and I can't tolerate myself dying comfortably on the bed. If my fate is to die in battle, then I would rather die in a fight with Senju Hashirama." Bai Sui looked at Uchiha Madara in front of him through his third eye and immediately learned that this was because Uchiha Madara overexploited his body in his early years. He often overloaded and refined chakra, which led to premature aging of the body and premature decline of function. Ban himself knew this, and he also knew that in this respect, Hashirama Senju is much stronger than him. If he didn't take advantage of his own strength before it fell from the peak, he would have no chance to compete with him in the future. However, Bai Sui was more concerned about another thing, which was the ancestral stone tablet of their Uchiha clan. With their current relationship, Bai Sui did not beat around the bush, but directly stated his purpose. "I heard that after the Six Paths sage sealed the goddess of the rabbit, he left behind a stone tablet. The stone tablet recorded the method to obtain powerful strength. Later, I found out through inquiries that the stone tablet was obtained by the Uchiha clan. I have two purposes for coming here this time. One is to see you and Izuna and chat with you. The other is about this stone tablet. I wonder if you can lend it to me to have a look." Uchiha Madara replied, "Sure, no problem, but the content recorded on it may disappoint you. Come, let's talk while we walk." With that, Uchiha-ban and Izuna led the way and walked towards the Nanga shrine of the Uchiha clan. The contents recorded on that stone tablet are mainly about the Sharingan. In addition to some ninjutsu and illusions related to the Sharingan, there is also a passage of words. However, this passage is sealed by a powerful illusion and can only be seen after possessing the Mangekyo. It is, when you kill your relatives, the Sharingan will shine, but it will gradually dim until it loses its light. Unless you get the pupil power of another person who also shines, it can shine forever. This passage obviously describes the method of opening the Mangekyo, but there are many problems. Of course, this may be due to the limitations of the person who recorded it at the beginning. First of all, the so-called killing of relatives. Izuna and I were stimulated to open the Mangekyo after seeing the death of our father. We did not kill our relatives with our own hands, and we have discussed this issue with you before. The real need for the Mangekyo to start should be either to actively cultivate the mental power to a high level and open it naturally, or to be greatly stimulated like my two brothers and open it passively. The disadvantage of our passive opening is that the mental strength is insufficient, which leads to frequent use of pupil skills. After a large amount of mental power is consumed to convert pupil power, it will lead to mental exhaustion, resulting in blindness, premature aging and other problems. Although there is no active opening case to verify our conjecture, it is at least much better than our passive opening. Apart from other things, the Uchiha mental training method we have summarized can now allow our clan to open their eyes without the stimulation of the battlefield. In the past, this process was accompanied by a large number of deaths. Now our new clan members only need to visualize step by step from an early age to open the Sharingan naturally. Although the current non-stimulating active eye opening is only 2 Magatama at most, after all, it has only been a short 10 years. On the one hand, this training method needs to be further optimized, and on the other hand, the clan members are not yet proficient. I think the effect will be higher when this training trend comes up in the future. As for the second half of the sentence, it is about the blindness symptoms caused by excessive use of the Mangekyo. which is also directly suppressed by our rudimentary training method, so we can't use it. Moreover, to be honest, this sentence not only has no positive effect on the entire family, but will cause the entire family to fall into disaster, because once this sentence spreads, it is inevitable that people in the family will want to gain power through extreme means. However, if a person can be cruel and kill his relatives, then what will he do after suddenly gaining such a powerful power? This is simply a huge hidden danger. The person who originally engraved this sentence on this stone tablet, even if he had good intentions and just wanted to pass on this method of seeing the eyes to future generations, would obviously bring harm to the entire Uchiha clan. Later, perhaps this person also discovered a problem, so he used a powerful illusion to hide this sentence, so that only those who have opened the main Gekyo can see it. To be honest, after Izuna and I discovered this sentence, we have repeatedly doubted whether there are other hidden stone carvings on this stone tablet, but no matter how we tried, we did not find anything else. It is a good thing that you are here now. In the current ninja world, there is no one else who can surpass the two of us in spiritual power. If you have not found anything after reading it, I think there is really nothing else on this stone tablet. The three of them came to the Nam Shrine. In front of the stone tablet, Bai Sui immediately discovered the spiritual fluctuations on it. If in the past, if Bai Sui wanted to break this illusion, the best way would be to directly use his spiritual consciousness to collide with this illusion directly, and use a head-on way to break this illusion. Now with his third eye, it is much more convenient. It can not only see the rhythm, but also directly see the illusion itself. Bai Sui's heart moved, an array of light shot out from this vertical pupil and hit the stone tablet. As the light hit the stone tablet, it felt like broken glass. As the space squirmed, a line of text hidden under the illusion was revealed. A god divided yin and yang into two poles, and in order to seek stability, when the two poles were reunited, all things in the world could be obtained. Chapter 94 Samsara I. Seeing the changes in the stone tablet, the Uchiha brothers' first reaction was that Bai Sui's mental power was so much stronger than theirs. You know, they had tried countless methods before, but none of them worked. Bai Sui not only broke the illusion directly, but also broke it to the point that they had not solved. At the same time, they were also curious about who carved this stone tablet. After all, there was still hidden content, which meant that at least in terms of mental power, it was far beyond the two brothers. But before the Uchiha brothers could think about the meaning of this sentence, they heard Bai Sui's surprised voice. Huh? There are traces of him here. Hearing this, Uchiha Madara asked, him? Who is he? This stone tablet has a history of at least 1,000 years in my clan. Bai Sui turned his head to Uchiha Izuna. I don't know if you still remember, when you were fighting with Senju Tobirama, there was a man hiding underground. Later, he escaped from my hands in an unprecedented way. I found his mark on the last sentence, and it is obviously not engraved by the same person as the previous one. Izuna nodded. Yes, I remember. We launched an investigation into this after that, but we didn't gain anything in this regard. The other party's ability to escape is not a common ninjutsu. Later, we gave up the investigation because there was really no clue. Speaking of this, Uchiha Madara on the side also remembered it. Obviously, anyone who dared to target his brother was firmly remembered in his heart. But, this stone tablet has at least 1,000 years of history. Who can say that it's so long? Could it be that he used the ninjutsu that can walk underground at will to do something with this stone tablet? There is no reason for this, Bai Sui said. As for living for thousands of years, I have seen two recently. One is the god of death who used to harvest people's dead souls, and the other is the slug immortal in the wet-boned forest in the three holy places. Both of them have lived for more than 1,000 years. According to the god of death himself, he has lived for nearly 10,000 years. And the ability to walk underground is also likely not a ninjutsu, but some other ability. After all, it is not certain whether the other party is a human. Hearing Bai Sui's words, the two Uchiha brothers were half believing and half doubting. In fact, this matter has some shocking views. In the past, everyone was in the ninja circle, but they didn't expect Bai Sui to speak about gods and immortals. So Bai Sui simply told the two about the history of the ninja world after he changed it, and told them the origin of the ninja, as well as the grievances with those gods and immortals. Uchiha Izuna thought for a while and said, that is to say, the one who attacked me underground that day was most likely not a ninja, or even a human, but another kind of life form. Nearly 1,000 years ago, he first tampered with a certain sentence on this stone tablet, and then for some reason, He wanted to attack me, so what was his purpose? Bai Sui took over the conversation. I think the reason why he attacked Izuna is most likely to be directed at you, Madara. Look at this sentence. Unless you get the eye power of another person who is also shining, you can shine forever. Since he was able to tamper with this last sentence, it is obvious that he has read the previous words. So I suspect he wants you to get Izuna's eye power and let you shine forever. Didn't we discuss the issue of bloodline limits before? Do you think there is a possibility of improving your bloodline limits? Maybe after your bloodline limits go one step further, you can see the last sentence he left, and this is very likely his purpose. You mean his purpose is most likely this sentence, Madara murmured, and walked forward and stroked the words engraved on the stone tablet with his hand. Yin and yang, two poles, unity, all things in the universe. Suddenly Uchiha Madara seemed to think of something, and suddenly slapped the stone tablet with his hand, making a pop sound, which attracted the attention of the other two people present to him. I see. This so-called yin and yang should refer to the Senju clan and the Uchiha clan. Izuna, do you remember that in the history of our clan, we would go to war with the Senju clan every once in a while? The reasons for each war were not recorded in the clan, and the end was also very hasty. I have also doubted before whether there were any members of my Uchiha clan who could open the main Gekyo before Izuna and I. It stands to reason that there would be some who would come out in this 1,000 years, but there is no record in the clan at all. I suspect that the man who attacked you that day may not have done this for the first time. Maybe he has been secretly manipulating the Uchiha clan before, so that we can grow the way he wants. Although I don't know what his ultimate goal is, it is obvious that he cannot do without these eyes. If he gets the pupil power of another person who is also shining, he can shine forever. So, would the condition for taking the eyes one step closer be more and higher quality pupil power? And would this be what the other party has always wanted to do? Kashiwasu agreed with Madara's idea. After all, although it was not completely correct in details, the general direction was correct, so Kashiwasu continued to provide some information. When I talked with the Shinigami before, I learned one thing from them. That is, the legendary six-path sage who pacified the ninja world and founded the ninja sect also had a pair of Sharingan when he was young, but you see there is a legend about the six-path sage now. The eyes of the sage in the legend are the Samsara eye. Do you think the Samsara eye is the product of the evolution of the main Gekyo? And what the person behind it is pursuing is actually the Samsara eye? Hearing Kashiwasu say that the six-path sage had a Sharingan when he was a child, the two Uchiha brothers were obviously still a little unconvinced and looked at Kashiwasu with doubtful eyes. Bai Sui nodded and said, "That's right, the god of death and the slug sage both said so. The toad sage in the three holy places grew up with the six-path sage. So their words are more credible." Madara asked, "Did the six-path sage also open the main Gekyo by killing his relatives?" Bai Sui thought for a while and said, "According to the slug sage, the six-path sage had the Byakugan at first, and opened the three Magatama Sharingan after seeing his lover die. As for how he opened the Rinnegan, the slug sage didn't know. He said that when he saw him later, it was already the Rinnegan. Anyway, I think it is very likely that the Sharingan will be followed by the Samsaragan, although there was a Byakugan before the Sharingan, but maybe that's the uniqueness of the sage." Chapter 95, Purity. Afterwards, Bai Sui talked about immortal arts and pupil arts with Uchiha Madara. On the one hand, he wanted to reveal his true colors to Uchiha Madara and let him know about the information of immortal arts. On the other hand, he wanted to see if pure pupil power could be imitated by mana. So Bai Sui discovered that pure pupil power, like true energy, could be directly replaced by mana, and there was no failure problem like chakra. After seeking Uchiha Madara's consent, they did an experiment. Bai Sui directly simulated mana into pupil power and input it into Uchiha Madara's kaleidoscope. Yes, it works. As soon as it was touched, Uchiha Madara immediately felt that his eyes, like rain in a dry land, immediately absorbed the pupil power. After waiting for a while, seeing that there was no problem, Bai Sui also let go of his hands and feet and tried his best to pour pupil power into it. It was about 1% of Bai Sui's own mana, plus the blessing of the inner scene, which finally made Uchiha Madara feel that his eyes were full, and even had a slight feeling of bloating. Although it did not say that the eyes were directly evolved, the most obvious feeling was that the vision was restored. In the past, although Uchiha Madara recovered through visualization, there was still a lot of damage and overdraft. Now, this time, Kashiwasu is equivalent to directly replenishing these overdrafts. According to Uchiha Madara's estimation, by the time of his decisive battle, these pupil powers will be almost absorbed. At that time, let's not talk about other things. At least Madara can be more relaxed when using pupil skills, and can squander them wantonly without worrying about going blind in battle. Although Kishiwasu still doesn't think that the current Uchiha Madara can beat Hashirama Senju, who has opened thousands of hands, but at least the chance of winning has increased by a few percentage points. So after that, Kishiwasu asked Uchiha Madara to cooperate with various experiments in the name of inspection. Since Uchiha Madara had just accepted Kishiwasu's pupil power, it was difficult for him to refuse, so Kishiwasu almost recorded the rhythm of Uchiha Madara's entire various situations. In order to give Kishiwasu a deeper understanding, Izuna also summoned many Uchiha clansmen to make arrangements for Kishiwasu. This move was exactly what Kishiwasu wanted, so he openly recorded the rhythms of the Sharingan at different stages. Madara is now the best test subject in Kishiwasu's hands. Whether it is the pure accumulation of mental power to open the eyes, or the experiment of advancing to the 6 paths in the future, it is inseparable from Madara's dedication. Kishiwasu did not try in front of him. After leaving the Twin Kingdom, Kishiwasu tried his best to change his rhythm in the direction of Uchiha Madara, wanting to try whether he could simulate a Mangekyo or a Sharingan. After all, according to the transformation technique he tried before, as long as Kishiwasu can become it, it is the same as the real thing. If this guess is successful, it is not just a matter of Sharingan, and even the future Samsara Kishiwasu can directly have it, and there is no need to consider whether it is suitable. The only problem now is that Kishiwasu has been trying to engrave the rhythm of the entire living person in the inner scene, but it has not been successful until now. This time, seeing the Uchiha clan's collection of Sharingan that Izuna took out gave Kishiwasu an inspiration. If it didn't work, he would just burn a part of it first, just burning a pair alone. Soon, Kishiwasu succeeded in burning a pair of 1 Magatama Sharingan according to his own ideas. This was a good start. The double Magatama, triple Magatama and even Mangekyo above it, although the rhythm is relatively more complicated, but as long as Kishiwasu is given time, he can burn it sooner or later. After that, Kishiwasu began to try to change the rhythm of his eyes and try to make a pair of Sharingan for himself. It's a pity that he still didn't succeed this time. It's not that he can't make a pair of Sharingan, but that this Sharingan can't fit with himself, and even the meridians around the eyes are different. But this is not meaningless. At least it gives Kishiwasu a research direction. Later, when he is in Kangzigul, he can study the rhythm of these parts in his spare time. Maybe he can piece together a complete person. With a direction, relying on Bai Sui's current earthly immortal level mental power, it is very simple to simply burn the parts of the human body, so Bai Sui tried to piece together a complete corpse. After that, no matter how Bai Sui tried, at most he could piece together a living dead person, and he could never inject a soul into it, making it a real person who can think. However, although he could only piece together a living dead person, at least he solved the many problems of Bai Sui copying a pair of Sharingan for himself. Now he has solved the problem of linking the copied eyes with the body meridians, and he can make it truly become a whole with Bai Sui himself. After that, Bai Sui tried to change the rhythm to further change the eyes to 3 Magatama Sharingan, which was also very successful. Only when it came to the Mangekyo, there was a problem. Bai Sui copied Uchiha Madara's Mangekyo. No matter how Bai Sui tried, he could not make the Mangekyo created by the rhythm fit with himself. Although it is not to say that it cannot be used, the power must be reduced by at least half. First of all, the pupil technique that is unique to the Mangekyo, which Kishiwasu did not find in his eyes, and later he found that the pupil power consumed by using these eyes was far beyond common sense. After trying, Kishiwasu decided to try to open the Mangekyo himself. After returning his eyes to the state of 3 Magatama, Kishiwasu began to convert his huge mana into pupil power and inject it into it for nourishment. I don't know whether it is because the pupil power injected by Kishiwasu is too much, or for some other reason. In just 3 days, Kishiwasu felt the throbbing in his eyes. After the 3 Magatama in his eyes rotated rapidly, a new pattern was generated, which was a blooming lotus. Almost at the same time as the transformation into the Mangekyo, Kishiwasu immediately sensed the 2 pupil techniques residing in his eyes, namely clear and pure. Perhaps because this Sharingan is the eye of spiritual reflection, and Kishiwasu's inner roots are not in this ninja world, so the 2 techniques do not have any names such as Kagutsuchi and Amaterasu, but are more in line with Kishiwasu's original culture. As for these 2 techniques, They are also easy to understand. Jing means to have a clean mind, Qing means to be incorruptible. Jing is more aimed at oneself, and can expel all external forces. Qing is more aimed at the outside, and can strip away everything that does not belong to oneself. It must be said that Bai Sui is very satisfied with these two techniques. Although they still seem to lack offensiveness, Bai Sui himself is not a competitive person. Relatively speaking, these two techniques that can even cleanse his mind are much more important. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96 begins. After obtaining the Meijekyo, Bai Sui did not stop and continued to pour a lot of pupil power into his eyes, wanting to know whether he could realize his idea. In the process, Bai Sui was also pleasantly surprised to find that his own rhythm, no matter how he changed it, was recorded in his inner scene. It was equivalent to saying that there was a rhythm in this inner scene that specifically recorded Bai Sui's all time. As long as Bai Sui was willing, he could rewind with one key. Although Bai Sui's practice progress during this period would be invalid, it seemed that when Bai Sui really needed to use this function, he would not care about the practice during this period. Time passed quickly, and before Bai Sui's own eyes had absorbed the pupil power poured into them, he received the news that Uchiha Madara was coming to visit. Counting the days, this should be the pupil power that Bai Sui gave to Madara last time, and it has been absorbed completely. Bai Sui naturally didn't say anything, and directly refilled the other party's cup. At the same time, he also learned from Madara that he had felt the difference in his eyes, and there seemed to be something in it, and it seemed that there was nothing, which made Madara a little scratching his head. Seeing this, Bai Sui was very happy and took the initiative to say that since it was useful, he would also help Izuna inject a portion. After some evasion, Bai Sui also obtained Izuna's full set of data and most of the rhythms. After sending the two away, Bai Sui sat in the study and thought to himself, if this can really be accomplished, plus my own, there will be a total of 3 pairs of samsara eyes, which is still not enough to deal with the Otsutsuki clan who will definitely come in the future. Bai Sui slammed his palm. Yes, there are also Byakugan. Isn't the samsara eye also a weapon that can fight against the Otsutsuki? And the so-called huge samsara eye is also fed with countless pairs of Byakugan. Maybe the principle is also the accumulation of pupil power, so that quantitative change can achieve qualitative change. However, there is no need to rush about the Byakugan for the time being. In the next few days, Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama will duel. I have to try to see if I can make the Meijekyo further transform during this period. After all, the amount of pupil power that Bai Sui's eyes can accommodate at one time is far more than that of Madara and Izuna. Unfortunately, compared to the transformation of the eyes, the duel between Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama came earlier. Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara stood facing each other in a valley. Outside the valley were a large number of curious onlookers. The number of onlookers this time was much larger than before. On the one hand, the two reserved a longer time this time, so some people from far away were able to arrive in time. On the other hand, many daimyo also sent people to watch the battle. Because the two sides were already in opposition, everyone simply used the two sides of the valley as a distinction. One side was for people sent by the ninja kingdom, and the other side was for people sent by the daimyo. Unlike the people from the ninja kingdom who paid more attention to the victory or defeat of Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara, the people sent by the daimyo had another important task, which was to evaluate whether the latest secret weapons developed by the daimyo in private could deal with Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama. Previously, the daimyos of other countries only listened to the retelling of the daimyos of the Land of Fire and sent people to observe the battlefield. Although the results obtained were that the two were very powerful, they still had no idea. So this time, they simply sent people to take a look, otherwise they would not give up. The two people in the field also knew each other's methods, so they were very skilled in fighting. Senju Hashirama put his hands together and used his wood release. Countless vines or tree roots surged underground and rushed towards Uchiha Madara from under Senju Hashirama's feet. Uchiha Madara rarely used fire release when fighting Senju Hashirama now. After all, it really could not cause any substantial harm or threat to Senju Hashirama. So Uchiha Madara simply stimulated his pupil power and formed a huge blue chakra arm in front of him, which was inserted directly into the ground in front of him, directly blocking Senju Hashirama's wood release. On the other side, Hashirama Senju mobilized his chakra as soon as his wood release was blocked, and manipulated the underground rhizome, winding upward like a python, intending to control the chakra arm. However, as Madara's pupil power was stimulated, the arm became more and more swollen, directly bursting the branches that were originally wrapped around it, and quickly grew the entire body with this arm as the starting point. Yes, there is no simple test at all in the battle between Uchiha Madara and Hashirama Senju. The first thing he did was to open the third stage of Susanoo. As for the armor of Karasa Tengu, he had to put it on, depending on whether both sides had a strong will to fight. Or it can be said that for Uchiha Madara now, the third stage of Susanoo, which is a powerful force that can destroy cities and take down strongholds, has become a means of warm-up. Seeing that Uchiha Madara was about to enter the formal battle phase so soon, Senju Hashirama immediately used wood-style, woodman technique to level the heights of both sides. Of course, this wooden arhat was now in its complete form, with a height of more than 100 meters but less than 200 meters, which was much higher than the third stage Susanoo. So Uchiha Madara immediately put on armor for his Susanoo to make himself taller, so that he could not stand shorter than Senju Hashirama. Many of the onlookers saw the battle between Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara for the first time. When they really saw someone who could turn himself into such a behemoth, and even revealed the power contained in his every move, it was obvious that this was definitely not a show-off. Especially those daimyo forces who came with a mission and wanted to evaluate whether they could deal with the two of them, felt a bitterness in their mouths. After all, although these two giants are more vulnerable to attack because of their larger size, just one stomp of the opponent's foot can make me almost fall down from such a distance. How many people can really muster the courage to fight with such an existence? Of course, Hashirama Senju and Uchiha Madara will not leave much time for everyone to prepare psychologically, and directly use the coolest shape to start the most primitive fist and foot fight. Oh, no, at least Uchiha Madara's Susanoo still uses a long sword. According to previous combat experience, the two sides will continue to fight in this form until Uchiha Madara feels that his pupil power is exhausted and Hashirama Senju feels that his hands and feet are a little weak, and the battle is over. Although it seems so fierce to outsiders, and countless terrains have changed because of the battle between the two, in fact, for the two, it is a boring battle that consumes physical strength and allows them to maintain their fighting feel. After all, there are forces behind them to maintain, so this kind of battle is boring but necessary. Chapter 97 changes. However, this battle was different. After Bai Sui's explanation, Uchiha Madara immediately knew that in previous battles, Hashirama Senju had always been holding back his strength, and each time he had just enough strength to fight against Uchiha Madara. And Uchiha Madara immediately understood the intention of Hashirama Senju, which was to maintain the balance between the current daimyo forces and the ninja forces. Once either of them was stronger, this balance might be directly broken, so a draw became the best choice. Although Uchiha Madara could understand this approach, he could never forgive it, because it meant that the previous battles between him and Hashirama Senju were like children playing in the eyes of the other party. Now in Uchiha Madara's mind, since you have always thought that this was like playing with a child, today I will let you see that a child going crazy is not to be underestimated. Uchiha Madara once again stimulated the pupil power in his eyes and opened Susanoo to the complete state, and Susanoo with wings flew high into the sky at the first time. As for Madara's situation, Hashirama Senju discovered it immediately and wanted to wrap his wooden dragon around him to prevent him from taking off. However, Madara Uchiha, who had been prepared for a long time, easily got rid of the harassment of the wooden dragon and stood in the air looking at Hashirama Senju below, wanting to see how the other party would break his tricks next. As Madara Uchiha's pupil power surged, a large number of blue chakra Magatama appeared in front of Susanoo. These Magatama were connected by a chakra light belt from head to tail and rotated rapidly around Madara Uchiha. In this rapidly rotating light belt, chakra Magatama would fly out from time to time and hit Hashirama Senju below at a very high speed. However, this was just the beginning. While the Magatama flew out, Madara Uchiha was still condensing more Magatama and adding them to the rotating light belt. At first, only one or two Magatama fell down, and Hashirama Senju was able to resist with the help of Wood Arhat and Wood Dragon. Later, as the number of Magatama increased, the recovery speed of Wood Arhat and Wood Dragon was much lower than the speed of destruction of the Magatama. Forced to do so, Hashirama Senju had to use Wood Release, Ranking technique, a defensive ninjutsu with high consumption. After a period of shaking, under the smoke and dust, Hoshirama Senju once again took on Uchiha Madara's attack without injury. According to past experience, Uchiha Madara obviously could not sustain such a strong consumption of pupil power for too long. By then, as long as he gradually showed his fatigue, the battle would be over. Unexpectedly, this time Uchiha Madara's Magatama seemed to have no consumption, and kept smashing down, causing the Fanghost face shield, which can withstand the output of the nine-tailed beast Jade, to begin to crack. It turned out that Madara changed his strategy as soon as the shield appeared, and smashed all the Magatama at the same point, finally breaking it. Seeing the fang-faced ghost's shield about to break, Uchiha Madara took the initiative to stop. After all, he knew that his current strength was no match for Senju Hoshirama's, and he wanted to vent his anger. In fact, if Kishiwasu hadn't filled his eyes with pupil power, he would not have let go even if he knew the difference in strength between the two sides. Instead, he would have used more radical means to force Senju Hoshirama to use all his strength. As for the consequence, it would be nothing more than death. Now that Kishiwasu has given Uchiha Madara a step closer to hope, he would not say that he still wanted to seek death. This time, he also wanted to tell the other party through his performance that he already knew that Senju Hoshirama had held back before, so he would just remember this matter and let him not waste his strength. He would experience the other party's full strength next time. During the time when Uchiha Madara and Senju Hoshirama were fighting, Bai Sui was not idle either. On the one hand, he hurried to record the rhythm of Senju Hoshirama. On the other hand, he also took advantage of the rare gathering of all the people and started to record his own rhythm. Although Bai Sui could no longer record a complete person in the inner scene, various special rhythms were recorded in different categories. If necessary, Bai Sui could also add, subtract and assemble according to his own preferences. Especially now that Bai Sui has his own one-key rewind ability, he is not afraid of trying to make progress on himself. After all, it is just a waste of 1 or 2 days of training time. If he can really take this opportunity to eliminate the bloodline limit of the ninja or even the bloodline, and even study the bloodline network, at least Bai Sui should not have to consider the relevant means of protecting the way in the short term. Seeing that the two protagonists of today's duel had stopped, the crowds watching naturally dispersed. As for those sent by the daimyo, they withdrew even faster, obviously wanting to send the information of this battle back as soon as possible, leaving their troubles to the daimyo to think about. And Uchiha Madara did not even follow his countrymen to the country of Den, but turned to Kishiwasu and followed the crowd to the country of Kang. Although the people of Kang didn't know why Uchiha Madara had been looking for Kishiwasu so frequently recently, in their opinion, it was naturally a good thing to be able to get along with one of the strongest people in the world. If Uchiha Madara had not had children, King Kang and his people really wanted to have another marriage with Uchiha Madara. In fact, this idea has not been unheard of. After all, although Uchiha Madara has not married, his younger brother Uchiha Izuna has already started a family. It is said that he married a female genius in their clan, who seems to be called Uchiha Chisori, who is also the best in the Uchiha clan who tries to use mental power to open the main Gekyo. The two also have a child, but the child is too young now, otherwise I am afraid that King Kang and his men would have put the marriage proposal on the agenda early. Uchiha Madara and Izuna have added some pupil power. They talked to Kishiwasu about the changes in their eyes. Perhaps their eyes had already experienced the tempering and use of attempts before, and they found that their eyes had changed a little. That is, the current main Gekyo is no longer just an efficient tool that simply consumes pupil power. It can actually generate a little pupil power. Although the amount is negligible, it is a sign in their view, a sign that their own bloodline limit is moving towards a deeper level. Chapter 98 Eternal Kaleidoscope. After another test, Bai Sui successfully recorded the current kaleidoscope rhythm of the two people, which can be regarded as a reference for his next step. After all, this is likely to be the advanced version of the kaleidoscope, the Eternal Kaleidoscope. With a new reference, Bai Sui is also looking forward to his eyes. When can they change further? In fact, during this process, Bai Sui did not try to work on his vertical pupils. In fact, he had no reaction to either pupil power or magic power, so he had to put it aside temporarily. In the following time, Bai Sui lived a very fulfilling life. On the one hand, he continued to infuse pupil power into his eyes, and on the other hand, he did not forget to continue to expand his inner vision. At the same time, He also tried to assemble the rhythms he had recorded when watching the battle before. This made Bai Sui's life very fulfilling. After about half a year, Bai Sui suddenly felt that the feeling that the Uchiha brothers had mentioned before appeared in his eyes, and at the same time, he could feel that there was a subtle pupil power, slowly nurturing in his eyes. Almost instantly, Bai Sui judged by his instinct that this was the eternal kaleidoscope, and directly found out the principle of this so-called never-blindness. The principle is very simple, that is, this pair of eyes, from this moment on, is no longer just a pair of eyes. In it, a tiny structure is produced under the nourishment of pupil power. The function of this structure is very simple, which is to simply absorb energy from the body and generate mental power. After that, this pair of eyes will spontaneously absorb this mental power and convert it into pupil power. Since this pair of eyes can generate pupil power and warm the eyes while only consuming body nutrients, this makes it appear extremely powerful when there is no other means of pupil power supplementation in the past, making people mistakenly think that it has transformed into another realm. I don't know if it is because of this small structure next to the eyes. Soon, with Bai Sui's unremitting efforts and self-analysis, Bai Sui also recorded the rhythm of this structure, and tried to use artificial intervention to grow these structures around the eyes and even other places. As for the effect, it was unexpectedly good. Bai Sui produced a large amount of mental power every day, which was used by Bai Sui to strengthen his own soul. As for the disadvantages of doing so, it was that the balance between the soul and the body that Bai Sui had managed to maintain with great difficulty would not last long. In the following time, Uchiha Madara and Izuna often came to visit Bai Sui, and Bai Sui was happy to update his experimental observation data in real time. Unexpectedly, the two brought another good news to Bai Sui this time, that is, Uchiha Izuna's wife Uchiha's Hili had successfully opened the main Gekio through the Uchiha visualization method, and also brought people over. For Uchiha's Hili, Kashiwasu couldn't do the same thing as for Uchiha Madara and his brothers. He simply made a rhythmic recording. The key point was that the rhythm of her pair of main Gekio was obviously different from theirs, but was closer to Kashiwasu's own pair. After the experiment, Kashiwasu was also surprised to find that the pupil power that Uchiha's Hili's eyes could accommodate was indeed more than Uchiha Madara's. Although it was not as good as Kashiwasu's own. It was obvious that such a change was benign. Afterwards, Kashiwasu also talked about his own discovery, saying that after inspection and experimentation, he had discovered why Uchiha Madara's main Gekio could breed pupil power, and showed this structure to the other party, and also said that if they were willing, Kashiwasu could artificially add one to Uchiha's Hili, and the effect would be as good as theirs. Before Uchiha's Hili could answer, Uchiha Izuna spoke first. Then may I ask, Senior, can we increase the number of this structure on this basis? Of course, this structure will consume your own nutrition. If you increase too much at one time, you may suffer from malnutrition in a short period of time. However, if the number is within 5, there is still no problem. How about I give you one first? Bai Sui understood the hidden meaning in his words at once. He was afraid of any risks and wanted Bai Sui to experiment on him first. So, with the experience of transforming himself, Bai Sui showed them an unimaginable transformation operation. He did not artificially implant this structure next to Uchiha Izuna's eyes through surgery or other means as they thought. Instead, he put one hand in front of Izuna's head, and then shook it at a weird frequency, while collecting and releasing mana along the shaking frequency. This was also a helpless method. After all, Bai Sui did not have the means to directly change the rhythm. He could only use this method to disturb the rhythm of the mana itself to achieve his goal indirectly. This lasted for about an hour, and Kashiwasu finally retracted his palm. Uchiha Izuna on the other side also opened his eyes. Really, I can feel that the pupil power growing in my eyes is much stronger than before. Although it is not yet certain whether it is 5 times, this increase is indeed very obvious, so, in the next 2 hours, Kashiwasu increased the number of this structure to 5 for Uchiha Izuna and Uchiha Chisato. This was the optimal number that he calculated in his own experiments to produce mental power without showing the body. Especially Uchiha Madara's body is no longer young. If too many are added, his eyes will compete with his body for nutrients, and it may even accelerate his aging. Compared with the progress of the Uchiha clan in obtaining the sage's eye, the progress of the Senju clan in obtaining the sage's body is not so smooth. First of all, with the cooperation of the entire Uzumaki clan, Kashiwasu still has not found out what exactly causes the difference in physique. Unlike the significant difference in a single organ such as the eyes, this physique is more of an overall problem. The problem is that Kishiwasu cannot completely recruit a person, not even a child, let alone Senju Hoshirama, who is several levels more gorgeous than the Uzumaki clan. In fact, Kishiwasu has thought of another way, that is, the Hyuga clan and the Kaguya clan. After all, compared with the overall physique, the Kaguya clan is relatively more prominent in the specificity of its bones, and although Otsutsuki Hamura is a little low-key in the plot of the previous life of Naruto, his strength is actually not to be underestimated. Chapter 99 Copy. It is still not possible for Kishiwasu to study the bloodline limits of the Hyuga clan and the Kaguya clan. After all, Kishiwasu's relationship with the two clans is just average. Although the relationship with the Hyuga clan seems to be slightly better, it is just maintained at a normal level. In addition, the Hyuga clan is a more traditional, or stereotyped family. It is obviously impossible for them to let Kishiwasu study like the Uchiha clan. Although it is not impossible for Kishiwasu to secretly record it, after many attempts by Kishiwasu, he was unable to obtain the complete rhythm of the relevant bloodline limits. As for the half-baked rhythm, he could not even condense the corresponding components, let alone replicate it on his body. However, there is always a way out. Kishiwasu thought of an existence that he had paid attention to a long time ago, the Underground Gold Exchange. I still remember that it was an institution jointly established by the old nobles that Kishiwasu discovered when he was wandering in the ninja world. However, after Bai Sui's exploration, he found that its main purpose was to collect the corpses of various ninjas in the entire ninja world. Now that so many years have passed, although it is not known whether this organization still exists, Bai Sui thinks that at most it will change its form, but there must be similar organizations. So Bai Sui came to the court of Kings Higuro for a long time and participated in a court meeting. The civil and military officials in the court were surprised to see Bai Sui's arrival, but no one said much. They just had bright eyes and waited to see what Bai Sui would say. After all, from past experience, Bai Sui really does not come to the Sanbei Hall for no reason. As long as he comes to attend the court meeting, there must be something important. You must know that whether it is the Death God or the spiritual scroll of the Whetbone Forest, it has brought them great benefits. But Bai Sui didn't say anything until the end of the court meeting. This does not mean that Bai Sui was bored today and came to listen to what everyone usually said. It just shows the importance of what Bai Sui said. It cannot be revealed in front of everyone, but must be held in a small-scale private conversation after the meeting. Seeing this, the ministers had different expressions. Some were worried that they would not get any benefits because of their low level, some were calm because they knew they would get some benefits because of their positions, others hurriedly winked at their friends. If they got a positive answer, they would be relieved. As for those who did not get a clear answer, they were anxious. Ignoring the officials who were reluctant to leave the hall, Bai Sui looked at King Kang and signaled him to arrange the people who would attend the meeting. Soon, only a few important ministers were left in the hall. Bai Sui always spoke directly here. I have recently cultivated an ability to copy blood limit. Whether it can be inherited is still under discussion, but there is no problem with direct use. It's just that this requires a corresponding blood limit sample as a reference, and the more references, the better the effect of the copy. Do you have any suggestions for this? As soon as this remark came out, it was so simple and direct that everyone present felt absurd. Looking at Bai Sui, they didn't know what to say. Knowing that everyone was a little unconvinced, Bai Sui said to everyone, when I frequently contacted the Uchiha clan before, I copied a copy of their bloodline limit. Although it is only the simplest one Magatama Sharingan, I think it can still help you. I wonder if any minister would like to try it. Everyone looked at each other, and finally no one stepped forward to speak. After all, what they were considering was whether this matter would anger Uchiha Madara once it was exposed, thus bringing disaster to themselves. In the end, King Kang found a confidant of the Uzumaki clan and asked Bai Sui to experiment. After that, everyone saw the same scene that Uchiha Madara and others had seen before. Bai Sui spent nearly 2 hours to replace a pair of one Magatama Sharingan for this confidant without direct physical contact. Afterwards, everyone was surprised to find that this pair of Sharingan could be opened and closed freely under the operation of a Uzumaki clan member, which simply subverted their cognition. You should know that as one of the 3 major eye techniques in the ninja world, the Sharingan is not unheard of. Everyone has conducted research openly and secretly in the past, And it is not that no one has tried to transplant a Sharingan, but it is almost a consensus of the entire ninja world that it cannot be controlled by outsiders. Originally, everyone thought that Kishiwasa had just found a more efficient transplant method through research, but they did not expect it to be so magical. After a simple but confidential test, everyone knew that this pair of eyes was real and effective. Kishiwasa said, "Come, let me restore your eyes to their original state. After all, it is better for us not to make enemies with the Uchiha clan for the time being." What do you think? This proposal was unanimously agreed by everyone. After Kishiwasa and others restored the eyes of the Uzumaki clan members, they began to talk about business. As everyone knows, I have visited Uchiha many times and had close contacts with their clan leader. After that, I was able to replicate the Sharingan after such a long period of contact while assisting him in his training. I think everyone can understand the difficulties. And I think everyone doesn't want to directly make enemies with other ninja clans, right? After all, if we capture and plunder ninjas from other countries, once this matter is discovered, we may face the siege of the entire ninja world, and it will be difficult for everyone to escape. So everyone discussed the relevant feasibility plans and conducted risk and benefit assessments for various plans. It was really a matter of many hands making light work. Everyone soon discussed a question, that is, whether Kishiwasa's replication could be extracted from civilians who had not awakened their bloodline limits. In response to this, Kishiwasa regretted that he had never tried to conduct experiments specifically on civilians before. After all, without knowing the bloodline limits that the other party might have, the overall replication would have no effect. So everyone considered this as an alternative plan. In fact, after learning about the relevant process and operation of copying with Kishiwasa, everyone had already put their minds at ease. After all, Kishiwasa did not need to dissect the other party or so, but more importantly, he needed to observe the other party's use of his own bloodline limit from a close distance. In this way, the operability was greatly improved. There were even ministers who proposed that the ninja countries hold joint competitions, under the name of mutual exchange and common progress in order to fight against the daimyo forces. In fact, those bloodline limits can be displayed in front of Kishiwasa at a very small cost or even no cost. Chapter 100 Conference. Finally, after the meeting, everyone discussed 4 practical and feasible plans, and decided that the corresponding ministers would cooperate and implement them together. And all those present today were required not to leak this information. No matter who leaked it, they would be punished for treason. Everyone highly agreed with this request. After all, although the benefits of this matter were sky high, the risks were enough to ruin the family behind them. Naturally, the fewer people knew about it, the better. So the secret meeting ended and everyone left to act according to the plan. But King Kang kept Bai Sui and wanted to have a secret talk between the two. It turned out that King Kang was still a little worried and wanted to verify with Bai Sui privately whether the Uzumaki clan member who had returned to his original state could not transform his Sharingan for a long time, or whether he transformed it to prevent leaks. After all, this matter involved too much, so he had to consider it carefully. After getting Bai Sui's definite answer, King Kang was really relieved. Then he talked to Bai Sui about the next successor. After all, although the current King Kang is Bai Sui's nephew, he is already in his 40s and 50s. Although he is still in good health, it is still better to confirm the successor early. On the one hand, it can allow the successor to be familiar with government affairs in advance and begin to intervene in some matters. When he succeeds to the throne, he can also ensure a smooth handover and avoid any turmoil in the country. At the same time, it is also to prevent the younger generation who may succeed to the throne from arguing for this. After all, the throne of Kanguo is not the eldest son inheritance system, but still uses the way the ninja clan used to select the heir of the clan leader. The capable ones are promoted and the mediocre ones are demoted. Therefore, the next King Kang may not necessarily be the son of the current King Kang, although he must be his nephew's, but people are different after all. Under the same conditions, they must be more inclined to their own children. King Kang began to get close to Bai Sui in advance, wanting Bai Sui to support his son as the heir. It's just a pity that Bai Sui has always been unwilling to get involved in such things, so he didn't agree directly, and of course he didn't refuse, because King Kang's son himself is indeed capable and is a leader among the younger generation of the Vortex. This is also normal. After all, the son of the patriarch is born with higher resources and can get in touch with many knowledge and levels that his peers and even ordinary people can't get in touch with in advance. He has a higher vision and a more mature way of thinking. Under such conditions, it is easier to become a talent than others. It's just that these people are only in their 20s now. In Bai Sui's opinion, their thoughts are still not mature enough. You let Bai Sui directly judge whether this person is suitable for managing a country. Bai Sui thinks that he doesn't have such a high vision. After all, he himself is unwilling to contact this court. He feels that it involves too much energy, so he is not very proficient in government affairs. However, Bai Sui recognized King Kang himself. Although he did not directly support his son, he gave him a jade pendant. This is Bai Sui's painstaking research for so many years. Plus the blessing after being able to see the rhythm, Bai Sui finally succeeded in engraving his previous exploding fire attribute dragon talisman into the jade. Even this piece of jade is not ordinary jade. It is a jade that has been warmed by Bai Sui with natural energy. Its texture is more delicate and more solid, enough to bear the terrifying power on it. The way to activate this jade pendant is also very simple. Any means will do, as long as you can destroy this jade pendant, whether you hit it hard or use ninjutsu to bombard it, etc. As long as you break this jade pendant and cause the dragon talisman inside to be unable to bear it, you can activate it. Although King Kang did not get a positive answer from Bai Sui, he was not so disappointed to get such a good thing. After all, such a powerful jade pendant that does not consume chakra can save his life if used well. It is a good thing that can really turn the tide in desperate situations. After all, King Kang knew the power of the dragon talisman. After all, Bai Sui had also tried to use the warm jade before, but it had been stimulated many times. The power was really amazing. Although it was not known whether it could be compared with the ninjutsu of Uchiha Madara and Senju Hashirama in terms of power, it was more than enough to attack cities and conquer territories. As for the things that happened later, it was much simpler. Bai Sui just had to stay at home and wait for news. After all, the rest of the entire Kang Kingdom would be fully prepared for Bai Sui. This was the benefit of having a big force behind him that he could speak for. As long as his proposal was valuable and could create benefits, there would be countless professionals running for him. As a result, only the next day, Bai Sui received intelligence that a screening of people in Kang Kingdom had been carried out. Although there were no other ninjas with bloodline limits, there were civilians who might have bloodline limits. Although these civilians were also members of the ninja clan, they were not valued in the ninja clan because they had no ninja talent. Although they could use the ninja clan's reputation or power to do some business in the ninja world, the war between the ninja kingdom and the daimyo forces caused many civilians who were doing business outside to have nowhere to go, so they had to go to nearby or neighboring ninja kingdoms. These civilians also joined Kang Kingdom at that time. Although there were special personnel who made relevant records for them and paid attention to them for a period of time, since neither they nor their descendants showed any ninja talent, they were gradually forgotten. It was also because the benefits brought by what Bai Sui said were too great. All the insiders mobilized their 120% ability to handle it, so these originally old and rotten records were also turned out by them, and the people were brought to the capital as quickly as possible. In order to avoid unnecessary panic, Kang's Higuro even specially dispatched ninjas to use the corresponding venues and facilities built by Earth Escape ninjas overnight to tell these civilians that this was a national census, and that the ministers of the country would meet with representatives from villages across the country to ask everyone what difficulties they encountered in the village, whether they needed any help, etc. And Kashiwasu, as Tabeo, attended the meeting and performed targeted recording according to the compiled intelligence in his hands. As the saying goes, do the whole show. After a 3-day meeting, Kashiwasa also sorted out his recording results and found that although these civilians did not activate the blood limit, they did have some rhythms different from other civilians, but this rhythm was too messy and too slight, resulting in no substantial progress, but it can also be used as a very meaningful reference material. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.